Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where OP and his wife can't agree on how much to tithe. Karen demands we donate 10% of our income to the church. My wife and I are in our mid-30s. We just got married these past 3 months. She dropped a bombshell on me today and said she wants to give 10% of our gross income to a local church. Info about us. We're both Christian, her more so than me. I was born and raised Catholic, but I don't go to church particularly often. For part of my childhood, we were lower, then firmly middle class. I think my wife grew up relatively well off. We both have college degrees and both recently received new jobs and promotions, and we're starting to make more money now. We're both in our mid-30s. For the past several years, we didn't live paycheck to paycheck, but there wasn't a whole lot of extra money. We do have some savings, around $30,000 between the both of us. We don't have any kids. We just started retirement accounts 2 years ago, and there's not much in them. We don't own a house, we rent. We both own cars. Her car is 10 years old and mine is 18 years old. We have around $10,000 in household debt, and I alone just finished paying off $80,000 in college student loans last year. I paid them off myself. She has no student loans due to family support. She's wanting to have 4 kids within the next 1 to 6 years, kids that will presumably need babysitters around the clock. We have no nearby family. We live in a high, medium to high cost of living metropolitan area, and the average 3-bedroom house is $700,000. 3 bedrooms with a garage is $800,000. A 4-bedroom house with a garage is well over $1 million easily. With our promotions combined, our household income will make us comfortable. We would make around $150K each, including year-end bonuses. This is double what we used to make. But am I crazy for thinking that 10% of our gross household income is a rather large amount of money to just give away? My first instinct is, if we won the lottery like this, why wouldn't we first make sure that we could pay for our kids' college in 18 years? Why wouldn't we just fund our retirement account so we could catch up with other people our age, or buy a house, or buy a new car that isn't almost 20 years old? We're both in our mid to late 30s and we aren't getting any younger. If we want to have 4 kids, support them, pay for their college, raise them well, and also retire, all of that takes money. 10% of our gross income, $30,000 a year, invested in the stock market over 30 years is probably going to be well over $1 million. As I was writing this and went to Google and punched in some numbers, it's more like $3 to $4 million at 8% rate of return over 30 years. And even if it came down to it, I would probably prefer to put money like this into a fund or a trust fund of some sort so my kids could have the safety net that I never had. Intel just laid off 15% of their workforce, which will definitely affect people in our surrounding area. I still remember the 2008 financial crisis and how it affected my family. I feel like the economy is on the cusp of a major recession. Our jobs are semi-stable, but the risk of downsizing and layoffs is always there. I have plenty of family and friends that have been on the job hunt for months now who are really hurting. I literally just paid off my student loans and it took me several years of living well below my means, so I get it. I don't know anyone right now who is able and willing to give 10% of their gross income like this away with all of this inflation and the cost of living. I have plenty of colleagues and friends that would never be able to afford a house in our city. Am I wrong for feeling uncomfortable for thinking that donating $30,000 a year, aka $4 million in the stock market over 30 years, is just a tiny bit irresponsible when we barely have any retirement savings and she wants to start a large family? I just want to know if maybe my way of thinking is wrong and if there's something I need to learn or reflect upon. She's telling me that her family gave 10% of their gross income growing up and everyone she knew did the same. I would be shocked if that was the case. Is this the norm or did we just grow up in different worlds? My wife read this and she wanted to add these points. She said that her viewpoint is she feels like she has seen this example of tithing benefit and work for people around her growing up, and it's a tax deduction. She's telling me that her family gave 10% of their income growing up and every other church member did the same, and they had testimonies of how they weren't struggling financially due to the tithing. She states that again, either the church or the IRS gets it. I've told her time and time again that any money you donate is simply just a charitable deduction, and you would have to donate over, I believe, $28,000 just to itemize and be the standard deduction. I have also told her that donating $1,000 just to save $200 in taxes is absurd because you would still be losing $800 overall. She is very much adamant that I'm wrong and that everyone donates and just takes it off their taxes. I'm not sure if she's understanding how taxes work, but again, this whole idea of donating $30,000 a year when she has no retirement savings, doesn't own a house, and wants 4 kids in her mid-30s, I think it's extremely irresponsible. Am I wrong in thinking that donating $30,000 a year is absolutely bonkers given the above? Update. We had an argument about this. I had brought up the point that a lot of people don't have a lot of money. You can't give a church money if you don't have any. Like, for a lot of families, you can't give 10% if you're on food stamps. I said, metaphorically, that if I had to choose between paying our family's power bill in the winter and paying 10% of our gross paycheck to the church down the street, I would 100% feed my kids and clothe them and make them comfortable before a single cent went elsewhere. I asked her if she would let her kids go without in order to give money to the church, and she didn't give me a real answer, but told me I had a scarcity mindset and that everyone she knows donates 10% of their income to the local church no matter what. The scarcity mindset thing probably has a hint of truth, but she also wasn't the one who just paid off $80,000 in student loans or is driving a nearly 20-year-old car. I don't recall her offering to donate 10% of her income to help pay off of my loans either. And I definitely wouldn't put my kids in such a situation in order to donate. We definitely aren't on the same page about this, and I suspect it's going to turn into a bigger issue than I expected. Absolutely ridiculous for the lifestyle she wants. It's not possible to guarantee you both will make $150K each for the foreseeable future. What if you become ill, you're in an accident, or your industry gets crushed? What if your first kid has special needs? My dad is about the most religious person you'd ever meet, and he was into this. It caused a lot of damage to our family. Tell her that the church isn't going to watch your kids while she works. Her church isn't going to help you pay your bills when you're retired. Her church isn't going to give you a ride when your 18-year-old car breaks down. Use the airplane safety analogy. You have to put your own oxygen mask on before you help others. You need to take care of your own basic needs before you can help others. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for starting the divorce process after finding out that my daughter isn't mine? My life feels like a bad drama show at this point. For some context, me, 33 male, and my wife, 30 female, have been married for 7 years, and what I thought was our daughter is 3. Looking back, this all started after my wife gave birth to her daughter. She suddenly became a lot more affectionate to me and was a lot more active with me. She also made my favorite desserts a lot more often. She's a fantastic baker. I, of course, didn't suspect anything since even prior to her pregnancy, there were no signs of cheating. Well, this whole fiasco started 2 weeks after a day out with her daughter, and she just sat me down in the evening and came clean about the fact that her daughter wasn't mine. Her waterworks, of course, also started, and apparently it was a guy from the gym, and it lasted about a month before he disappeared on her after he found out she was pregnant. Honestly, even typing this out now, I feel like crying, since I thought I did everything perfectly, but she still cheated. As much as I wish I could say that I had a stone face or something, I just started crying, and she tried to comfort me, but I just pushed her away. I felt so disgusted with her. After I had calmed down a bit, I just grabbed my jacket and left for a hotel. And while I was leaving, she just begged and pleaded me to forgive her and that I was the only father her daughter knew. After crying myself to sleep in the hotel, the next day I turned my phone back on, and I had seen that she had blown up my phone, and I didn't read any of it. I just blocked her. After having some breakfast, I contacted a lawyer to start the divorce process. And at work, I just asked for some time off, and my boss gave me a month. By the evening, my mom and sister were calling me on her behalf, and they were on her side, and that just hurt me even more. While I'm not proud to admit this, I did drink myself to sleep that night. After that night, I started staying with my best friend, and my mom and sister kept spamming and calling me. A few days later, after she probably got the divorce papers, my mom just sent me a long text that, to summarize, was that I should step up and forgive her and not abandon my daughter, and that she would disown me if I went through with the divorce. My sister and mom are against me divorcing her, but my best friend and his wife are saying I have the right to not want to be with her or take care of her kid. I'm split on this. On one hand, I did raise the baby for 3 years. On another, I don't know if I could, in the right mind, raise the remainder of my wife and her affair. Edit. For more context, my sister is infertile, so I think that's also partly why my mom doesn't want me to continue the divorce since she would lose her grandchild. You're not wrong, OP. She only stopped the affair because he split after finding out she was pregnant, and only after a month she was already hooking up with him. I smell BS. What would she have done if he had taken responsibility for the kid? Most likely run off with the gym guy. You're her backup after he left her. I'm sorry this happened to you. You can still be in the kid's life, but I would just get into therapy before making any other decisions. but the divorce is 100% justified in my opinion, not the jerk. My boyfriend asked me to pay a portion of his child support. Backstory. My boyfriend, 34 male, and I, 33 female, have been together for 3.5 years, and I've lived with him for 1.5 of those years. We had many ups and downs, and I recently decided to move out because I didn't see the relationship progressing in a healthy way. I got a new apartment, and we were starting to cut ties when we decided that we love each other and we want to continue working on the relationship. He just started going to individual therapy, and I've been on my own therapy for 4 years now. We also briefly saw a couples therapist to help us communicate better and work on the right kind of arguing. We both felt we were making progress in the couples therapy, but we had to stop when our therapist had an emergency and our communication slowly broke down. Now, my boyfriend is saying he would like me to move back in when my year lease is up at my current apartment. The situation. My boyfriend is an electrician and makes double my annual salary, not including side jobs that he's able to take that are cash, and he doesn't need to claim those for his taxes. He has credit card debt that he's hoping to wipe out in the next 3 years and no student loans. If I moved back, I would be commuting 2 hours each way, twice a week to get into work, which is roughly $150 a month. $120 of that is covered by my work, but it's taxed, so I don't get the full amount back. I have student loan debt and credit card debt that I'm paying down, but the credit card debt won't be wiped for 5 years, and the student loans will be decades. He was grandfathered into his rent and pays $888 for a 2-bedroom with all the utilities included. We share the car insurance, internet, groceries, and maintenance of the car. And I have a dog and a cat that I pay the vet bills for and for food, which runs me approximately $70 a month. He has a daughter that he pays roughly $700 a month in child support. I asked for a percentage split in our shared bills, omitting my animals and his child support payments. He told me that it was a no for the percentage split because we would be living in such a cheap apartment. My opinion is that I'm coming back from an overpriced 1-bedroom with more debt than him and less income and wanted help with the shared bills in order to contribute to saving for a future purchase of property together and to get ahead of my credit debt to hopefully pay it off sooner than anticipated. He was willing, but only if we put every single bill, event we might do, movies, and restaurants in, and to include his child support payments too. I said I wouldn't pay for his child support because that's not my responsibility, just like my animals aren't his. He said that he would not budge and I either pay a portion of his child support or no percentage split, and it's a 50-50 split. I don't see how that's fair as, again, he makes double my annual income and he has several thousand more than I do in savings. I said I only wanted the split for 1 year to get back on my feet so that I could be more of a contributor in the future. Help me now so I can help us later. He said I should have found a cheaper place and that I chose to leave and put myself in this position of expenses to income ratio, which I don't disagree with. However, we're in a housing crisis and it was a desperate need as I was unsure how I was going to retrieve my things in the first place as we had a bad breakup. I've made it clear that there are other things I'm willing to give up, such as move cities, leave the close proximity of work for a longer commute, leave my friends and family, and to try and be a full partner again. My parents are helping me with a portion of my rent now, and he said that if I move back in, I should just keep taking money from them. I responded with, "You, as my partner, can't help me for 1 year to get back on my feet, but you feel comfortable telling me to continue asking my parents?" He said he didn't want to turn into my parents and just give me money so I could live. He wants me to show him that I'm able to handle my own bills with his cheap rent, because if I can't, then he doesn't see how it would work with a mortgage. I don't disagree with that logic, but again, I only asked for this split for 1 year and then we'd go back to 50-50. I love my boyfriend very much and I know he loves me. We have both compromised on many other things, but this is the big one for me. So what do I do? Update. I told him I wasn't going to pay any portion and he said that we needed to split everything 50-50 then. I told him he needed to understand that no matter what I do, I'm not in a field that will be able to make the same amount of income as him. I also emailed the person who wrote the percentage split article and he agreed with me and many of you that his child is his responsibility and that is in no way up to me to help compensate it. When I told him this, he said he understood but needed to decide, in not so many words, if I would be pushing to go further, which he sees me doing. I reminded him that he should want to be with me for who I am and not just what I can financially contribute, and that I contribute in other areas of our life as well. He still wouldn't budge, so I've decided this is no longer an option. So we did break up. Sometimes it helps to have many people remind you you're being a bit crazy and you can't see it. Thanks. He will ruin you financially. He wants you to cover expenses 50-50 at his income level despite you earning half his income. Expenses should be a 2-to-1 split proportional to income. He also wants you to contribute to his child support. This is sounding more and more like financial mistreatment. The only person that wins here is him. Run. Would I be the jerk if I got my dream dog, even though my girlfriend would be upset? I, 23 male, just moved into my first apartment on my own. I've only lived here for 5 months. It's a 1-bedroom shoebox, but it's mine. And the best part is that it allows pets. I'm planning to get a dog very soon. My family has had dogs all my life. The problem I'm having is with my girlfriend, who's 21. She doesn't live with me, but she's over here a lot. When I told her I wanted to get a dog, she was excited, until I mentioned I wanted a dachshund. I love dachshunds. I grew up with a little brown wiener dog named Teddy. We had a couple of other dogs at the same time, but Teddy and I were bonded. He was a really sweet, gentle, and well-trained dog. I loved him so much. As a kid, he would jump up and snuggle into my bed during storms, and I loved it because I was really scared of big storms back then. He was my best friend until he passed. I've always wanted to get another dachshund. My girlfriend, however, doesn't like small dogs. I didn't know this until I mentioned what breed I'm planning to get, and she flipped out. She says she can't stand tiny dogs because they jump and bark, and they're just really irritating to her. She loves big dogs, but apparently small ones are all demons to her. I told her I would train the dog and make sure it was well behaved. This isn't my first time having one, but she insists that small dogs can't be trained and she won't want to spend time with me if I have one around. Now she's giving me the silent treatment because I'm not backing down and still want a dachshund. My parents are on my side because they loved Teddy too, and they're excited for me to get another dachshund. My dad even offered to help dog-proof my apartment and help train the dog, since he was the one that originally trained Teddy. My friends are kind of split. Since she doesn't actually live with me, some are saying her opinion doesn't matter on what dog I get, but some think that I should compromise and find another breed that we would both like so she feels more comfortable. But that doesn't feel fair to me. I've been looking forward to this for so long, and I just don't understand why she's being so weird about it. She won't tell me specifically why she can't stand small dogs, she just does, and that's it. We've been together for 2 years, and she's never acted like this before. I'm so confused. So Reddit, would I be the jerk if I disregarded my girlfriend and got a dachshund anyways? Should I reconsider? Not the jerk. You're 23, living on your own for the first time, and unmarried. This is the time in life to make your own choices. Not the jerk. She's showing her true colors, and they look very controlling. You should get whatever dog you want. You sound like a responsible young man that plans to be a great dog dad. She should be supporting you in this decision. It's something you've wanted for a long time. There are pets in our lives that really stick with us and make our lives better for having them. Teddy sounds like the goodest boy, and I hope your new dog is just as awesome.
Karen caused 1/3 of the staff to quit in one day. Our story begins at a small, fast casual chain restaurant with a total staff of about 16 people. Due to staffing issues, shifts were run with the absolute bare minimum, the skeleton of a skeleton crew. Enter the coworker. We'll call her Jane. Now Jane was an interesting case. About 16 or 17. In our 1 year of having her, she caused us no end of trouble. Constantly late to her shifts, damaging or breaking nearly everything in the store. Multiple issues with customers, ranging anywhere from bad attitude to how did we not get sued? The list goes on. By this point, most everyone in the store was beyond frustrated with her antics. But because of the staffing problems, she never got fired. The day of the incident, I was working a double. I was closing with Jane in the kitchen after my lunch break, much to my chagrin. When I returned from my lunch break, however, I see a different coworker, let's call him Adam, in the kitchen instead. He lets me know that he traded shifts with Jane and that she'll be in at 6. Mood considerably lifted. We get to work. 6 o'clock rolls around with no sign of Jane. We wait for about 15 more minutes, then call her to ask where she is. She responds that she's not emotionally stable enough to come in right now, then promises she'll be 20 minutes and hangs up. Everyone's a strange combination of baffled, concerned, and annoyed at this, but there's not much time to think on it, as we're now in the thick of our dinner rush and it's shaping up to be one of our busiest. 7 o'clock and everyone is furious. We're already stressed from such a busy day. Front is livid that Jane ditched them. I'm angry because we've been dealing with this nonsense for months, and the manager, who wasn't in that day, but we'd been updating him on the situation, is similarly displeased. Eventually, we all agreed that if Jane comes in, we'd just send her home right away. She had already missed a good 75% of her shift, and we had had enough people to close without her. And then Adam gets a call. It's Jane. She insists she'll be in to close. Just give her 10 minutes. But Adam is firm that if she comes in, we'll just send her home and not to bother. There's some back and forth, and eventually they hang up. We think that's the end of it, but no. 20 minutes later, and who shows up but Jane, completely and utterly wasted. I'm stunned she could even walk. She clocks in, despite our protests, and takes one man's order, slurring her words so badly he has to ask her to repeat herself about 4 times. Then she heads to the back, sitting on the floor and staring into space. Everyone, and I do mean everyone, in the store tells her to go home, but she's adamant that she doesn't mind and that it's okay. It takes about 3 of us cornering her in the back and repeatedly telling her to get out and go home before she finally leaves. We all breathe a sigh of relief and get back to closing, only to find the bottle of tequila she had brought in and hidden, quite poorly, behind the register. The next day, 5 of us, completely independently of each other, put in our 2-week notices. Karen, those comics are worth a fortune. One of my all-time favorite stories to tell when hanging out with other comic book geeks. Backstory. So I used to be a huge comic book fan and buyer. I hung out at the local comic book shop for hours at a time, a couple of times a week, not counting shipment day, and talked shop with the owner, the guy who ran the shop, and the myriad of regular customers. Shop owner I'll dub Mr. Albertson. Guy who ran the shop will be Jeff, other monikers as people get introduced. The comic book shop was located on a busy street, and the back part of this shop was a living quarters for Mr. Albertson. There was no public restroom in the shop area. Now, Mr. Albertson was a very nice, intelligent guy, someone I called friend and respected. Sadly, though, he had issues when it came to hygiene. The bathroom in his living quarters was just plain nasty. As I had worked in rental property make-ready for over 20 years, when I say nasty, I mean get the flamethrower and burn it nasty. I knew this because I fixed the faucet in the bathroom once. Then I immediately went home and took a nice hot bath. Jeff, understandably, refused to use this bathroom. He would hold it until lunchtime and use the public restroom at a local restaurant. Afterwards, he would wait until he got home. Sometimes, however, Jeff just couldn't wait. The need was too urgent. When this happened, he would close the shop and take a break. Setup. One day while I was in the shop, I could tell Jeff was in some amount of distress. I asked him what was wrong, and he informed me that he really had to use the restroom, as something he ate was not agreeing with him. But he couldn't just close the shop due to the fact the shop's biggest customer was expected to come in at any time now to pick up his weekly order. I thought it over and told Jeff that I could stay and watch the store. I knew Mr. Big Bucks always paid with a check, so if he came in for his order while Jeff was away, I would simply tell him the amount Jeff always pre-calculated on the previous order invoice. Then I would take the check and slide it under the cash register. Jeff knew me very well from many years of hanging out in the shop, and my family's reputation for honesty and integrity was well known. Jeff readily agreed and made a run for it. 5 minutes later, Mr. Big Bucks walks in the door and asks where Jeff is. I tell him Jeff had to answer nature's call really badly. Therefore, I was watching the store until he got back. I went behind the counter, pulled out Mr. Big Bucks' weekly superhero addiction delivery and the preview's invoice order form. Mr. Big Bucks checked the order, approved the invoice amount, and wrote out the check. I then slid it under the cash register. Now, normally, Mr. Big Bucks is in a hurry, grabs his order, and leaves. But today, he was checking the inventory when Mr. Action walked in the door. Mr. Action is not just a regular, but a respected dealer in comic books and collectibles. Mr. Big Bucks and Mr. Action struck up a conversation. I just leaned against the counter and continued to read the latest issue of Amazing Spider-Man. A few pages later, a nasty scowl walked in the door, followed a second later by the face wearing it. It was a 30-ish something woman, hair pulled back, tight in a pigtail, pink sweatshirt with pink across the chest. She was carrying a cardboard box that looked like it had been in a flood. "You, give me $1,000, she said as she heaved the box onto the counter. "Excuse me?" I replied while flinching back from the stench of mold coming from the box. "Give me $1,000. Why?" You buy comics. These are comics, so give me my money. More than a little thrown off by the demand for money and the attitude, I stuttered out a response. First off, I don't work here. Second, this shop isn't a dealer in old comics. Miss Nasty Scowl cut me off. I know very well you work here. My boyfriend told me that the fat guy who works behind the counter would give me money for these old comics. He also told me not to let you cheat me. I want $1,000 now. I looked down at my belly. If Gabriel Iglesias was around back then, he would say I was just shy of being fluffy. Look, lady, I don't work here. The regular fat guy is running. A snort and a guffle came from the comic racks. Shut it, you two, I said over my shoulder. I don't work here. I'm just watching the shop while the regular fat guy who runs the store is out on an errand. He'll be back soon, but even still, he doesn't buy old comics, I reiterated. Miss Nasty Scowl actually growled at me. Even if there is another fat guy who normally runs this place, you are here now. You are behind the counter now, so you will give me my money now. Mr. Action tried to say something, but he was cut off by Miss Nasty Scowl screaming, You shut up! I wasn't talking to you, you ugly old jerk. Well, I've been told I have the patience of a saint, but I got my limits. I looked at a visibly irritated Mr. Big Bucks and a now steaming mad Mr. Action. Suddenly, I had a thought. That thought bumped into a few others, and within seconds I had a funny idea. Turning back to Miss Nasty Scowl, I said in a calm voice, You're right, miss. I apologize. You see, we get people coming in here trying to sell fake old comics. We have to be careful, you understand? Whatever. Just give me my money. Let me take a look at what I'm sure is a fine collection, I said with my best shoveling it deep smile. When I opened the old cardboard box's top, I nearly gagged at the smell of mold. Inside was indeed comics. Comics that looked like they may have been stored in a cellar that flooded. They were covered in mold, sticking together, and just in completely rotten shape. After flipping through a few that were not stuck together, I let out a loud gasp of shock. My God, I yelled. Mr. Action, come here quick. Look what she has. I'm fine over here, he said while pinching his nose. No, look, I firmly said while turning my head and giving a conspirator's wink and smirk at Mr. Action. Curious as to what I was up to, Mr. Action followed my prompt and came behind the counter. To Miss Nasty Scowl, You're in luck today. This is Mr. Action. He's our local authority on comic book appraisals. From what I've only glanced at, this collection of yours is worth way more than a measly $1,000. I'd say it's worth $20,000 at least. Right, Mr. Action? Mr. Action has known me for many years. He was, in fact, one of my teachers in high school and had seen my sense of humor in action many times. He had no idea where I was going with this, but he knew it would go someplace ridiculously funny, for us at least. Good Lord, these are Casper the Friendly Ghost comics, Richie Rich, and these are Archie comics, giving Miss Nasty Scowl his most eager expression. Do you have any idea how rare these comics are? No. Are they worth more than $1,000? Way more, I declared. In fact, Mr. Big Bucks, didn't you once buy an Archie comics collection at auction? What did you pay for it? 10 to 12 grand? I'm sorry, miss, but we are just a small-town collector shop. We simply do not have the budget to purchase this expensive collection. You need to take these to one of the big stores in the city. Mr. Action, what is the name of that dealer you are always complaining about? You know, the one who you said stole clients from you? I asked, knowing he would get my prompt. Sure enough, a nasty smile crossed his face. Mr. Burns, let me write down his address for you, my dear, Mr. Action said as he reached for a pen and a scrap piece of paper. Now, with address in hand and a greedy smile plastered on her face, Miss Nasty Scowl carried her box of moldy comics out of the store. What the heck was that all about? Mr. Big Bucks asked, still confused. Mr. Action and I set about explaining the prank we just pulled on the woman and a crooked dealer both Mr. Action and I had run afoul of on separate occasions. 20 minutes later, Jeff returned. The three of us ensured he was okay. When he asked if anything happened while he was gone, the three of us just shook our heads, and I said, nope. The next week, I went in to hang out with Jeff for a bit. Jeff looked at me for a second, then said, funny thing happened yesterday. A really upset woman came in here screaming about how our other employee lied to her. I thought she was talking about the owner, Mr. Albertson, at first, but then she said he was another fat guy like me. I told her I was the only employee. What did she say then? I asked. Nothing. She just screamed like a maniac and stormed out, leaving a box full of worthless old moldy comics. Driving down an icy hill. I was a service tech who did scheduled calls to customers' homes. We generally had anywhere from 8 to 12 jobs a day as we were swamped. As one of the lead techs, I was also assigned jobs that most of the other techs had no training to fix. On this particular day, it began snowing and icing, and the road conditions began worsening. No issues normally, as long as I could just avoid a few streets in town that have steep hills. I have a job in a newer area, and when I get to the neighborhood, I notice the house is at the bottom of a pretty steep hill on a dead-end street. I park at the top and message my supervisor and tell him I would recommend we reschedule the job, as my truck would never make it back up the hill. He must have been having a bad day, but he goes off on me and demands I just do the job. The road conditions were not that bad. I took a photo of the hill and sent it, but he still demanded I do the job. I would also note that my truck is vital to the work, and I could not have walked to the home due to the equipment in the truck that is required. Cue the malicious compliance. I saved the message and sent it to my personal account. Getting to the customer home was no issue, and I had them up and running in under 30 minutes. I followed my supervisor's demands and did the job. Leaving was another issue. I could not get to the top of the hill with the truck. I quickly gave up once I determined it was hopeless. Me. I'm stuck at the bottom of a hill and unable to get my truck up it. The other scheduled jobs will have to be reassigned and a tow truck called to get me out. Supervisor. Try harder. It's not that hard to drive on icy conditions. Me. At this point, I feel it unsafe to do so from this point on, as I feel I could damage the homeowner's property. See the prior message about the hill being too steep and my request to it being rescheduled being denied. At this point, the supervisor calls me and I confirm I will not attempt to further climb the hill. He grumbles, but knows me enough not to push me, so tells me to hang on. I wait 45 minutes and he shows up in his work truck, much smaller and lighter than mine. He does not even attempt to go down the hill, but walks. He tries for a while to get my truck up himself, but then accidentally hits a mailbox. He gives up and calls a tow truck. With wintry conditions, I wait another 3 hours for a truck to arrive. When they do arrive, they also get stuck at the bottom of the hill. Not sure why they even tried going down it. Now me and a tow truck are stuck at the bottom of the hill, and this time the wait is even longer. They needed to bring in a specialty truck, which turns out does not have a long enough chain to reach us at the bottom of the hill. We wait even longer for a third tow truck to arrive. Overall, I arrived at the customer's home at 9:30 a.m. and finished at about 10 a.m. I do not get up the hill until 7 p.m. 9 hours I was at the bottom of the hill with my truck running while I played online on my laptop. Instead of working in the wintry conditions outside, I was toasty in the cab. Am I the jerk for pretty much giving my wife an ultimatum? My wife and I are in our late 30s, and I have 2 girls who are 14 and 16. My wife works in a pretty high-stress position that often requires a lot of travel, sometimes up to 2 full weeks a month. But the job is in her desired field, and she's worked hard to get to where she is, and it pays well, which is a plus. I work a lower-stress job with more flexible hours, but it doesn't pay as well. Because of my wife's job, I have been the parent that attends to most of our kids' needs. I take them to their activities, I attend all the games and recitals, I take them shopping, taught our oldest how to drive, etc. A few weeks ago, my wife got a job offer from a client of hers that she's worked with for years. It would be a more stable position that would pretty much eliminate her travel and would also come with a nice bump in pay. The only problem is that the job is literally across the country, like 2,000 miles away. When she told me about it, she was beyond excited because this job would finally give her a chance to be at home with our girls again. She was talking about it like it was already decided that she would take the job and we would move. I tried to share in her initial excitement, but all I could think of was leaving behind the life that the girls and I had built here. My wife sensed that I wasn't as enthusiastic about the job as she was and asked me what was up. I told her that the girls are at an age now where uprooting their lives and leaving all their friends behind would be a pretty drastic change, and we needed to get their input before making any decisions. She agreed, and we spoke with them. Both of the girls wanted to stay where we are. Neither liked the idea of moving and starting in new schools. They like their friends, they like their school, they like their sports and activities here. My wife got upset and tried to convince them how much better it would be for her to have a job that actually allowed her to be present in their lives again. But my oldest pretty much told her that she was being selfish for asking them to uproot their lives just so that she could feel better about herself. My wife broke down in tears after the talk and confessed to me that she thought this new job would be an easy decision for us and I should help her convince our daughters that it was the right choice. I told her that I wasn't going to do that. I told her we should wait until the girls are done with high school before moving across country like that. She said this kind of job opportunity doesn't come around that often, and if she doesn't take it, then she doesn't know if she'll ever get a chance like this again. She said she felt like I was forcing her to choose between her family and her career, and I told her that's pretty much exactly the decision she needs to make. She asked what would happen if she took the job, and I told her I would probably stay here with our girls. She called me a jerk and now isn't talking to me. Giant Golden Archway. Back in 2010, I got a job working for a company that has an unofficial food item where you put $1 menu sandwich into another. I worked there for a year and a half. During that time, I learned everything. I could open, close, work the grill very well, and work front counter and drive-through as well, if not better than most that worked there on a consistent basis. I'd been promised a review when I was hired that was to take place after 6 months of being there. Being the kind of employee that wants to move up in the company, I never pushed the issue, but instead kept pushing to learn everything I could, so that when I did get my review, I would get a good one. In my time there, I called off once because I was recovering from emergency surgery to get rid of a cyst that had ruptured. On the same token, I was always the first to volunteer to pick up a shift if it didn't interfere with my college classes. After being there a year and a half, they announced everyone would be getting a review. My general manager came to me and told me the time she wanted to schedule me for my raise. I told her at that time that I would be needing a quarter raise, $10 a week, in order to make it so I could sustain working there while going to college, and she said she understood. When my review came, I was floored. Despite all of the work I had put in and the energy I had poured into my job hoping to reach management while going to college, she assessed me as a meets expectations employee. I don't mean to sound cocky, but I knew my own value as an employee. I knew I more than exceeded expectations of an employee of that company, and I said as much. She tried to claim it was based on the consensus of the other managers, but I knew myself to be a favorite employee of every manager but her. She then told me that she would be giving me a 15-cent raise. I told her I had requested a quarter, and she said that 15 cents was the best she could do. The wheels turned in my head, and I knew I was undervalued by her, and I would never have a chance to move up. So I told her I would be putting in my 2 weeks' notice. She looked at me crazy and said, "You're leaving over 10 cents?" I looked her right in the eyes as I said, "No, you're losing a fully cross-trained employee that loves her job over 10 cents. I then stood up and walked out to my car. I did write out a 2 weeks' notice and immediately began looking for work. During my search, when she worked with me, she'd frequently tell me how someone of my experience couldn't hope to get a job making the $8 an hour I'd requested of them. Well, I did, and then some. I applied to a gas station that was obsessed with the letter Z on the East Coast and was to work in their kitchen overnight. I'd be making $12 an hour if I got the job. I called literally every day until I got an interview. I had my interview the night of my last call and was given the job on the spot. With 5 days left on my notice, I informed her that I had gotten a job, where I'd gotten it, and how much I'd be making. If looks could kill, I'd never have been able to start at my other job because of the dirt that I'd be buried under. To get back at me, she wanted the one thing I treasured most. As an employee working for that company, they'd give you pins you could put onto your hat to show your accomplishments. In a year and a half, I'd earned over 30 pins. I was proud of them and considering them a collection. She told me that after my last shift, I'd have to return my uniforms and all of my pins. I claimed the pins were mine as payment for things I had done, but she told me she would make sure I'd be docked the cost of the pins out of my last paycheck if I didn't return them. She did it. Despite everything I'd worked for to turn this in my favor, she got under my skin. So I decided to get her back. Not wanting to completely burn a bridge, I came up with an idea. An idea I can confidently say was my own, but had been done before on some shows I'd never seen at the time. I decided to suspend them in Jello. The night before my last shift, I cooked up a large bowl of Jello. Before putting it in the fridge, I tied strings around my pins and suspended them at various points throughout the bowl by taping the string ends to the outside of the bowl. I let it cool overnight. After I finished my last shift, I told my manager I was running home to get my uniforms and pins. I returned a half an hour later with my Jello overturned onto a plate. I'll always miss you, plate. Then I put the uniforms on the floor next to her desk and, looking her dead in the eye, placed the Jello on her desk and said, "Here's your pins." I walked out without waiting for her response and decided never to go there again. Her roommate, who also worked there, told me that it was all her coworkers could talk about all day. I was at least able to take some satisfaction in the fact that maybe I could inspire some other shenanigans from my coworkers if they too decided that company was not for them. As a reminder, people don't quit bad jobs, they quit bad managers. Fine, you can come collect it tomorrow. Years ago, I crashed my motorbike. My fault, and I did bend a fork and some cosmetic damage, like broken mirror, broken kickstand. I had always dealt with the same motorbike store for parts, and they were always really good to me, so I assumed they would help with repairing my bike. I took it in and was originally told no time frame for repairs. I agree, since they do not know what damage there is yet. Originally, I get a call that both forks were bent and so on, and told $800. 2 months later, I ring saying, "Hey, what's going on?" Was told the forks never arrived. They will have to reorder. A month goes by. I ring back, and I'm told that they're still waiting on the order. Another month. Was told they haven't had time to pull the bike apart to check out the damage. Price is now $1,500. Another month. The fork only just arrived, and they will order the rest of the parts. I'll skip ahead here, basically saying this had stretched to 7 months and was now up to $2,000. I rang back, saying this has gone on for far too long. I'm coming in tomorrow to take my bike back, and you better have it ready. Walk to the store and can't find my bike. The mechanic could not even recall working on it. Was told it may be on the display in the store. I walk in, my bike is on display and had been there for the past week. I go to the counter to say that's my bike and I want it. They can't find the receipt. I say, "Yeah, you might want to look further. You kept it for 7 months. They eventually find it and say, "Did you get a new battery?" I said yes. The guy I had been dealing with had not been keeping up with his tally, and I was being charged for a new battery. The counter staff asked, "Why did we have this bike for so long?" I said, "No idea, you just kept it." They tried to ring the owner I was dealing with. However, his phone was off as he was at the dentist. I said I want my bike now, so paid for the battery and rode off. The owner tried calling me for weeks afterwards. I just kept hanging up. Customer doesn't understand the passage of time. This happened to me a few years ago. I've never been able to forget it. One of those weird things that just sticks with you. I was working in the gift shop at a zoo to get me by while I was in college. The shop was pretty big. From one end, you can't really see the other end. There's one checkout next to the entrance. It's kind of on its own at that side of the shop. Then there's the 3 main checkouts at the other end of the shop by the exit. This is all important. On to the story. So one day I'm stood at the checkout by the entrance. I like working on that one because it's never busy. People don't normally walk through the whole shop, then go back to the entrance to pay. It's an odd place to have a checkout, but I'm not complaining. Easy day for me. Anyway, this guy walks out of the zoo and into the shop. He immediately turns and looks at me. Guy: "Is this checkout open?" Me: "Yes, it is. Is there something you're looking for?" He doesn't respond and just walks back out of the shop and back into the zoo. Bit weird, I thought. Guy just walks straight into the shop, asks if a checkout is open, then walks out. I didn't really think anything more of it, then carried on working. About half an hour later, my manager comes over and asks me to cash up and go and take over for someone at one of the other main checkouts. I cash up and close the checkout. I turn all the lights off, put a cover over the desktop, and put out the sign that tells people to pay at the exit. All pretty clear signs that the checkout isn't open, especially the literal sign. A while later, I'm working on the main checkout and this guy comes stomping up. I realize it's the same guy that came in like an hour ago, asking if that checkout was open. You know where this is going. Guy: "I've been stood waiting at that checkout for 20 minutes. Me: "Sorry, sir. That checkout has been closed. You can pay here, though." "Well, you told me it was open. Now you've wasted my time." Me: Again, I apologize, but we closed that checkout. Guy, now more annoyed.
Well, I came in before and you told me that it was open. You lied to me.
Me, sir, the checkout was open an hour ago. Since then, we've closed it. There was a sign that says to pay over here. Guy,
Well, I didn't see any sign. How am I supposed to know it's closed? And why would you close it after telling me it's open?
at this point, I've had enough. How clueless is this guy? Who in their right mind comes into a shop an hour beforehand to see if a checkout is open? Things aren't going to be the same an hour later. How could he not tell that it was closed? Every other customer had no issue with seeing that. Did he not notice flocks of people walking past with items to pay at the other end? Me. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Again, we closed that checkout a little while ago. I'll see what we can do about making it more obvious that the checkout's closed. Guy.
It's just poor customer service. You've wasted my time here. Your management is going to hear about this. Just check me out so I can leave.
Me. Thought it best not to actually say this out loud. You're darn right they will. My manager's gonna love this one. Never a dull day. That conversation didn't happen, and I can prove it. Had a guy check in yesterday afternoon. Very normal, uneventful check-in. This morning, he comes down to the desk in a tizzy about the deposit. He's tried to check out with the night auditor this morning and was very unhappy to learn the deposit on his card wouldn't be refunded instantaneously. What's more, he insisted I'd told him it would happen. Grump. You stood there and told me that the deposit would be refunded immediately. So when I check out, you're going to go up and check my room and give me my money back. Me. That's not accurate, sir, so I can't imagine I would have said that. After you check out, housekeeping will check your room. Then on our end, we will refund the deposit and then your bank processes the refund. For whatever reason, our deposit acts like a charge instead of an authorization. Grump. And that happens immediately? Me. I'm not sure how long it will take your bank to process it, sir. That was my last $50 to live on. So you're going to give me my money back when I leave. Me. There's no way for me to do that, sir. I have no control over how long it takes your bank to process refunds. You told me it would be immediate. I do not recall that, sir. And considering that's not how refunds work, I can't imagine I would have said that. But I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding. You told me that. That's my last $50, and you're going to give it back to me. Yes, sir. Assuming everything is good after checkout on our end, we will process the refund, then it's on your bank. I want it back today. I have no control over that, sir. This is BS. I want to speak to your manager. I'm the manager on duty. Then I want to talk to the owner. He's on vacation. How am I getting my money back? After you check out and housekeeping checks the room. We process the refund on our end, then it's up to your bank. You should have told me that at check-in. I don't recall our conversation at check-in, sir, so I do apologize for the misunderstanding. I wouldn't have stayed here if I had known the money wouldn't be right back. Okay. You misled me. I don't believe I did. He whined some more, demanded the deposit back some more, and I repeated myself some more, because at that point, there was really nothing else to say. After he finally left, I turned to my trusty Sidekick security camera. I pulled up the video from when he checked in to figure out what I might have said that he was trying to twist on me. Lo and behold, dude never once asked about the deposit and how it would be refunded. He asked if the deposit had to be on his card, and I said yes. That was the entirety of our conversation about it. The deposit being back on his card was apparently such a big deal to him, but he made no mention of it to me. Then he lied about it. He was back at the desk an hour later. So, the deposit will be back on my card today? I'm not sure how long it will take your bank to process it, sir. You told me— No, I didn't. You see that camera? It records everything I say and do. I told you there's a $50 deposit on your card. You asked if it has to be on the card, and I said yes. That was the extent of the conversation about the deposit. You didn't ask about how long it would take to get the deposit back on your card, so I didn't say anything about it, because I didn't know that it was important to you. Usually people ask when that's the case. He grumbled, then stomped off defeated. Store employee wouldn't give me my items because I don't have the same last name as my husband. My husband, Will Williams, for the purpose of this story, has a store card for a big box store that sells DIY stuff. I am an authorized user on the card. Even though we've been married 3 years, I didn't take his name. This has never been an issue before today. Will had surgery 2 days ago and decided this morning that he wanted to do some projects around the house while he's stuck at home recovering. So he purchased about $250 worth of stuff from the DIY store online and asked that I pick up the items because he can't drive yet. I drive to the DIY store, head to the pickup counter, and show the email and my license when asked. The woman looks at me and says, "You aren't Will Williams?" I explained that no, I am Will's wife, Flamingo Lemon. I'm here to pick up the order. I confirm Will's email address and phone number. According to her, I can't be Will Williams' wife because my last name isn't Williams, it's Lemon, and therefore I'm committing fraud. I showed her on my license that the address listed is the same as the address on the account. Nope, doesn't matter. Since our last names don't match, I'm committing fraud. Will has to pick up his own items. I explained that Will had surgery and has a cast on his leg, which is why he isn't able to pick up the items. I state that I am an authorized user on the card and that the email address Will put in when he placed is one I know. I've had zero issues picking up stuff for him before. She starts trying to bend my license in half and I pull it out of her hand. I tell her this is ridiculous and ask when she gets off work so I can speak with someone who understands that people can be married and share a card and have a different last name. Then I walk away. As I'm leaving, she's yelling to me that I'm committing fraud, so the whole staff hears. I did yell back that I'm not, and I don't know what your problem is, and I walked out. But I'm fuming right now. Will is also upset, because now I have to drag him and his sore, casted leg back to the DIY store to get our stuff. I really want to call the manager and complain. Yes, it's a Karen move, especially with her trying to destroy my license. But I worry if I do, we will never see our stuff. Am I the jerk here? Edit. I went back to the store with my husband's license and a note from him saying I could pick up the order. Left Will in the recliner. We looked all over the DIY store's app and website to see if there was a way to authorize a different pickup person, but couldn't figure it out, especially since my info was already on the order. I got the order through their drive-up and they didn't check any licenses, especially after all that BS. I called the store number once I got home and spoke with the manager. They apologized for the employee and offered me a $5 account credit. $5? They better give you a little something more after all that crap. My entitled mother just can't figure out why she can't keep a babysitter. This was a few years ago. My mom was in her late 30s. Babysitter, May, was about 15 or 16. My sister, Eva, was 11. I was 19. Names have been changed for privacy. My mom is a single parent and has been for over a decade now. She lives in her late father's house, which she does not own, but no one in our family wanted her and my sister to be homeless. All of her bills, water, gas, electric, and sometimes groceries when she forgets to renew SNAP benefits, were paid by her grandma. My mom had a job at a local gas station. Her shift started at 3 a.m. and she wanted my sister's babysitter to show up at 2 to 2:30 a.m. My mom had problems paying the babysitter on time, and 1 week just didn't pay her at all. May told my mom that if she didn't pay her this time, she wasn't going to come back next week. My mom basically told her she was going to come back whether she was paid or not because Eva and my mom needed her. So my mom didn't pay her and May didn't show up the next Saturday. My mom refused to go into work for the whole weekend and started calling May to tell her that May owed her money for making her miss work. She says that she owed May $40, but by missing work on Saturday, she missed out on making $80 on her check. She wanted May to pay her $80, but since she owed May money, my mom wanted to be nice by only asking for $40 and not making her pay for Sunday too. May refused to come back and babysit ever again and told other babysitters to avoid working for my mom. Around this time, I came back from my first year in college and was looking for a place to live until I found an apartment. My mom offered to let me live with her until I found a place, on the condition that I was always available to watch my sister when she needed me. I agreed and moved in. I also worked and paid for groceries while saving money for when I moved out. She had been moved to the late afternoon shift because she wasn't showing up for the morning shift. Her shift started at 2 p.m. and I clocked out of my job at noon. We didn't have a car, so we walked everywhere. Her walk to work was 15 minutes and mine was about 10 minutes. One day we had a meeting at work and it ran late. I clocked out at 12:10. As I walked outside, I pulled out my phone to call my mom and tell her I just left work and would be at home soon. But I found a voicemail from my mom that she left at like 12:02, telling me that I was irresponsible and inconsiderate, and if I couldn't call her when I was on my way home, then I could live somewhere else. By the time the voicemail ended, I was walking up the driveway, and my mom and sister were outside watering plants. I told her why I was late, and she told me not to listen to the voicemail she had left and delete it. A month or two later, I found a place to rent with 2 roommates. I told my mom I was moving 2 weeks before we were set to move in, so she could work on finding a babysitter. She told me that she would work on it, but if she didn't find one, she expected me to still come back to her house and watch my sister every day. She also still wanted me to pay for groceries after I moved out. After 2 weeks, she still hadn't found a babysitter, so I continued to watch my sister after I moved for about a week and a half. I was working from 3 a.m. to noon, then going to my mom's house and taking care of my sister and the house until my mom came home around midnight when her shift ended at 9. Then I would go to my place, get maybe 2 hours of sleep, and have to be up for work again. I told my mom I wasn't going to do it anymore, reminded her that she started leaving me and our brother alone when we were 5 and 6, and that Eva really didn't need a babysitter at 11. She had a breakdown, told me it was my fault if she lost her job and Eva got taken away from her. She stopped going to work and got fired. It has been 4 years, and only recently she started working again about 3 months ago. The time I employed the Worcester Sheriff to bring the Worcester Police to court. Years ago, I got a speeding ticket in Worcester, Massachusetts. It was a typical speed trap where they sit at the bottom of a steep hill, knowing that lots of people will exceed the very low speed limit because gravity. It was BS, so I decided to fight it and at least make them work for their $100 fine. I read everything I could on fighting radar tickets, and one strategy was to check whether the police department had proper FCC documents on their radar used. If they don't, the radar info is inadmissible and you probably will win your case. I went to the Worcester police station and found the records department down in the basement. I showed them the ticket and explained that I wanted to view the paperwork for the radar that was used to record my speed. I had to wait a couple minutes, but some official came out and sternly informed me that civilians don't have access to that information. Cue malicious compliance. I asked a few people how you request records for a court case, and it turns out that, at least in Massachusetts, that's one of the things the sheriff's office does. So I went to them, paid them $50, I know, on a $100 ticket, but I've always enjoyed tilting at windmills, and described the documents I required. I have to admit that by the time I had to go to court, I had kind of forgotten about the sheriff's department, but I did notice this police officer sitting in the audience section with all the other people fighting tickets. This guy wasn't your typical police officer though. He was wearing a very fancy uniform and his hat had all kinds of gold braid on it. He did not look happy. Traffic court being traffic court, it's all kinds of disorganized, with a bunch of citizens sitting around waiting for things to start. And of course the proceedings plod along at a snail's pace. Finally, my name is called after about a half an hour, and this police officer comes over to me and explains that he is the captain or lieutenant, I forget now, in charge of the entire records division for the Worcester Police, and he has the radar records in his hand for me to examine. So I look it over, and it seems to all be in order, so I thank him. He's visibly angry about having to spend his morning sitting in traffic court over a $100 citation. Totally worth the $50. To this day, I don't know whether someone at the sheriff's department was just messing with the police department by naming the top guy in the records request, but I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. Don't want to let the citizens see your records? Fine. I would have loved to have been there when the sheriff's department showed up to serve the head guy with a court order. Oh, by the way, I lost the case. Am I the jerk for walking out in the middle of my boyfriend's birthday party? I, female 25, have been with my boyfriend, who's 28, for 3 years. Our relationship is great and we rarely fight. His birthday was a few days ago and I wanted to do something together, but his parents already decided to host the party at their house. My boyfriend got there first. I showed up after I got off work and he was there with the guests, busy talking and greeting in the backyard. I took a seat in the back and his sister showed up with her husband and son, Jake. We're not on good terms, by the way. She said hi, then asked if I could watch her son Jake. I was like, but she disappeared and left her kid with me before I could even answer, so I decided to just keep an eye on him until she gets back since he was sitting across from me. I spilled my drink on my top, which was messy. I gave Jake my phone to play on it and asked him to sit still till I get back. Then I went to use the bathroom to clean up the stain. Clearly, Jake walked towards the pool and the floor was slippery, so he slipped and fell and injured his knee. That's when I heard loud noise coming from outside, like people panicking. I went to see what was going on and saw my boyfriend and his family with Jake. I heard my boyfriend's dad ask who was supposed to watch Jake, and his sister said my name. My boyfriend saw me and shouted, "OP, where the heck have you been? How could you have let this happen?" I was taken aback. I said I was in the bathroom cleaning up the stain. He asked, "Is the stain more important than my nephew?" I explained that his family or his mother should have kept an eye on him. He said there are many guests, so they probably didn't notice, and said I should stop turning this around on his family since I agreed to watch Jake. I said no, I did not initially agree to watch Jake and came to the party as a guest, not a babysitter, and that his sister just dumped him on me and disappeared without even waiting to hear if I was going to say no. We had an argument, and I got fed up being presented with hypothetical scenarios of what could have happened if Jake fell into the pool and was blamed to no end, so I grabbed my stuff and walked out. My boyfriend's parents saw me leave, and he followed me, asking me to wait and return, but I refused. He said I have no reason to be upset, but more reason to be worried, just like they all were, and insisted I go back inside, but I got in my car and left. He came back later looking upset. He said that yes, while it might be his sister's fault for still bringing her son after he stated he didn't want kids there because of the pool, but said I ruined the party by walking out and refusing to take responsibility and admitting I should have made sure Jake was safe before leaving him out of my sight, whether I agreed to watch him or not. He said his parents are rightfully upset and didn't appreciate my behavior earlier on, then walking out, which hurt him on a personal level since it's his birthday and it should mean something to me. I felt like he might be right and mishandled this entire situation. Am I the jerk? Jake is 4. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or everyone else? Please let us know. I think everyone kind of sucks here, to be honest. I'll have the gluten-free bread. Don't worry, you don't have to change your gloves. Back during my college days, I worked on the on-campus dining hall as a student worker. We got assigned to various positions there for that particular shift. I liked working at the deli corner. I had fun talking to my coworker and talking to the customers as I made their sandwiches. It was fun. At the deli corner, the dining hall actually had special gluten-free breads and options for those that wanted a sandwich, but obviously couldn't have the normal bread options. In this case, I would need to wash my hands very thoroughly and change my gloves before proceeding with the order. This was to protect those that needed to have gluten-free options. Everything was fine and dandy for a very long while. But then, a new health craze began to catch on quickly. Gluten-free was healthier. Instead of getting 3 people per shift asking for gluten-free options, I would now get maybe 15 to 20 people per shift. The malicious compliance, I couldn't ask people about whether they needed gluten-free or were doing it because they could. But without fail, whenever someone mentioned that they wanted the gluten-free option, I immediately went to wash my hands and take up precious time that they had for their meal, overall about 1 to 2 extra minutes. The people stood there confused for the first couple of times this happened, and they didn't like it. When they realized what was happening, they would make their order and then state they didn't need me to change my gloves. I could just make their sandwich. Upon hearing this, I smiled and informed the person exactly why I needed to wash my hands and change my gloves, and then go through with it. I took up more of their precious time than before. Ultimately, no one ever yelled at me nor got me in trouble. After all, I was following protocol. They would just sigh and look down in defeat and continue with their order. I know this isn't the most malicious compliance out there, but I did take great joy in following this protocol. Edit, just to clarify and reiterate what some people have already said in the comments below. The issue was that of cross-contamination. Sure, the people who wanted the gluten-free bread and gave me permission to not wash my hands and change my gloves were not considering those who couldn't eat gluten at all in any amount. The gluten-free stash of deli materials were meant to be separate, and we could guarantee that no traces of gluten were there because of our diligence. My washing of my hands and changing of my gloves weren't for the benefit of those who chose the gluten-free option. It was for the benefits of those who needed gluten-free options. Am I the jerk for mimicking my brother's tantrums to prove my parents treat us differently? My brother is 14 and I'm 15. It's always been really obvious to me that he's the favorite kid, and my parents treat him differently than me. His room is twice the size of mine, He gets money to go out with his friends and eat, but if I want to go out, I have to use money I saved for my birthday or Christmas, or when grandma visits. I get in trouble for things he doesn't get in trouble for. There's higher expectations on me. If my parents need help with something, it's always me they ask, not him. Stuff like that. I've been trying to explain to them that we get treated differently and they don't agree. They think it's just in my head. I would give them examples, like how my brother is always really grumpy and barely speaks to them. But if I'm in a bad mood and barely speak to them for one day, I get in trouble. But they said it's different and got annoyed when I tried to get them to explain why. My brother has been doing this thing lately where he gets annoyed about something. I think it's when he loses in a video game or his game freezes or something, but I'm not sure because it's always in his room. And he starts yelling and slamming his hand on his desk. Then he stomps around the house slamming doors for like an hour. This happens maybe once a week. It scares my cat, and honestly, it scares me too. But my parents just ignore it. He did it yesterday while I was holding the cat, and my arms got shredded because the cat got panicked. I asked my mom if she's going to talk to him about his outbursts, and she said I should just ignore it and he'll grow out of it. So today, I decided I'd test out what happens if I do the exact same thing as him. I waited until the cat was in the other end of the house so I didn't scare him, and I yelled and thumped my hand on my desk. I didn't even get to do anything else, like slamming doors, because my mom got so angry right away and burst into my room and started yelling at me. When she took a breath, I said, "Okay, so now that you've practiced with me, you can tell my brother off next time he does it, right?" And she got even more mad and said I need to grow up and stop focusing on my brother so much, and I should just focus on myself because it's up to my parents to decide how to deal with our behavior, not me. So now I'm grounded for doing this, but my brother does that and then slams doors and stomps around the house like once a week and has never even been told to stop. And still, my parents won't admit they treat us differently. My dad even came in later to tell me off all over again for copying my brother just to prove a point, but wouldn't acknowledge I did actually make my point. He just kept saying I was being immature. Am I the jerk? ETA. I think a lot of people are reading too much into this, maybe based on their own experiences and assumptions. My parents are totally fine to be around, except for the fact that they're strict when they think I'm out of line, but not with my brother. We get along fine every other time. Just because they're hypocrites doesn't mean they're psychos. My brother has just recently started these anger issues, and my parents haven't bothered to do anything about it. He's not even completely dependent on them. Like, he cooks his own meals and cleans his own room and does chores just like me. He just gets extra money and a bigger room and doesn't get called out when he's being crappy. Don't be a jerk to your teenager's potential employer. A few years ago, I worked as a sales manager for 3 stores. I had approximately 50 sales team members over the 3 stores, and I did everything from interviewing, hiring, inducting, training, rostering, etc. One time, we were hiring juniors for after-school shifts. The franchisee arranged some interviews that he had arranged online, and I scheduled those that were walk-ins. Interviews were scheduled in 15-minute intervals, but we had both scheduled a 4 p.m. interview. No biggie. At some time between 3:55 p.m. and 4, the supervisor interrupts me just before an interview ended. She got this weird look on her face. "Ah, there's a lady here. She wants to talk to you. Now, because her daughter has an interview at 4. I finish the interview and go out to the front to find Mumzilla, one hand on her hip and the other holding her phone adjacent to her ear, glaring at me. "Hi, can I help you?" I ask, kind of curiously. "Hi, my daughter has an interview at 4 p.m. Still a few minutes away. Scheduled by the franchisee. We've been here since 3:30, and now we find out there's another girl here. What is going on?" I explained that yes, the boss and I had overlapped at 4 p.m. I was aware, and that it wasn't a big deal. Her tone changed immediately. "Oh, okay. Well, should I send my daughter over?" "Whoever was here first." "Well, we've been here since 3:30, she snaps. "Well then, send her in." When she came for the interview, I made sure I circled her name. Everyone else who attended got a tick. Those who didn't show got an X. This girl had her name circled so I would not forget. She interviewed really well, but truth be told, she had already failed. I couldn't risk having her mother hovering throughout her employment. At the end, I said, "If you're a successful applicant, I will contact you Monday evening. I won't be contacting unsuccessful applicants, but there's too many candidates." I told my franchisee about the situation. At about 9:15 p.m. Monday, the franchisee forwards me an email stating simply, "Is this the girl with the mom?" The original email is from the girl's account. Dear OP, due to management error, I was not on the list of interviews. I did eventually receive an interview, and I was assured I would be informed this afternoon whether I had the position or not. It's now 7:58 p.m., and I have not heard from your company. Is this because I did not get the job, or because once again I have been neglected? I told the franchisee they weren't forgotten or neglected, so we drafted a reply on his behalf. Dear applicant, I can assure you that you were on the list of interviewees as I finalized the list. The manager informed you that she would be contacting successful candidates only. Unfortunately, you and your mother were unsuccessful during this recruitment process. Best wishes for future endeavors. The boss and I agreed that it sounded like the mom wrote the email and that I had dodged a bullet. Edit. This was a highly affluent suburb, full of entitlement. When the bridezilla is actually the mom. So the hotel I work for is a popular wedding destination, so I've dealt with more than my fair share of certified bridezillas. From early check-ins to transportation stress to the crazy relatives, I like to think I've just about seen it all. But have y'all ever encountered a bridezilla who's not a bride at all and most likely hasn't been for a decade? For additional background, our hotel also boasts a fairly popular spa on our second floor, and today I get a call from them about room availability for next Sunday. An odd request coming from the spa, but I comply because I know a lot of people will come down and ask me about rates after an appointment. I let my spa receptionist know we have exactly one more suite available for next weekend and to send down the people who want to book it so that they can secure our last one. She then asks me if the suite across from the spa specifically will be open, and I let her know I have no way of knowing, but we can request that room for the guest on the reservation. No, she's insisting it has to be that exact room. I implore the spa receptionist to try explaining how requests work and to send them down to me. I can already tell this is going to be a pain in the butt. About 30 minutes later, an older-ish lady comes down with her embarrassed daughter in tow. At the spa, they're saying we can't have room X number. Why? I explain we can still book her our last suite for that weekend, but we can't guarantee that exact room if it's requested. We go back and forth on what the word request means for a minute while the daughter looks so uncomfortable. She tries to soften me up by telling me her daughter is getting married here next weekend and they already have a suite. Why she didn't lead with that is beyond me, but I still told her it's only a request. I put the note in the existing reservation and that seemed to satisfy her for now. But as we all know in this industry, it's never that easy. Mother of the bride then asks me where our pool tables went. I explained we've converted the area into our breakfast nook to enforce social distancing here because of what's going on. Her response to that was a condescending, "Oh, is that why they're still forcing you to wear that mask?" Not that it's any of her business, but I tell her I wear it on my own accord and ask her if I can help her with anything else. Momzilla then asks if we could get the pool tables uncovered for wedding pictures while her daughter puts her face in her hands. Now, I don't know what she was expecting me to say, but this next part of the interaction gave me a migraine. Me. I can't say. I'd call back in the morning if I were you and either ask our GM or our events manager since I just work front desk. Momzilla. Okay, so the floor coordinator you said? They'll know? Me. No, either our general manager or our events manager, which is the same person who helped you book the rooms. But not the floor coordinator though? Why can't they help us? Finally, her daughter, the voice of reason, chimes in. No, Mom, she said a manager. She never even said the word coordinate. Turning to me. Do you have a business card with your GM's name so she can ask, please? I hand her the card and she thanks me and tells her mom she's got somewhere to be. As someone who has had the same brand of mom, I see in her eyes that's total BS just to get her home. I tell the bride-to-be congratulations and dread seeing her mom again next weekend. Am I the jerk for telling my fiance to cook his own meals? I'm 26, female, and my fiance, 29, male, is a bottomless pit. I can make 5 pounds of food and it'll be gone in 2 meals. I'm trying to be healthy and lose weight, so I've decided that I'm going to cook throughout the week to limit the frozen meals and fast food. But I'll have to cook every day just to make sure there's enough food for lunch the next day between the two of us. I work a full-time job, and honestly, this sounds exhausting to work 9 to 10 hours a day and then come home and cook what amounts to a 3-course meal every night. I asked my fiance if he could take on some of the cooking, but the most he's willing to do is help Tuesday and Thursday. His help is also limited because his ADHD makes sequential tasks, like recipes, hard for him. He says we can supplement the missing food with takeout, which is exactly what I'm trying to avoid. I told him this, and his response was, "Then cook every night." I told him that that's fine, but then he'll have to find and cook his own food so that I have enough to get through 1 or 2 days of work lunches without spending hours cooking huge amounts of food. He got upset, asking why I can't just make extra, and I told him I can't be making 3 times a recipe every night. It's too much work, and he doesn't understand how much harder it is to cook with massive quantities. He also doesn't like some of the types of protein I do, so I would need to cook slightly special for him. Now he's upset with me, saying his help twice a week should be more than enough, and that it's not a big deal to start slow and eat takeout once or twice. He also says it's unfair to expect him to suddenly cook multiple times a week given his disability. Not saying ADHD isn't a challenge, just that I feel he uses it as a reason to not try to work on something. Just say it's impossible and move on. I'm tired of making resolutions to be healthy only to quit because I can't keep up with it, and a big part of that is because I'm taking care of 2 people alone. I also feel bad though, because I don't want him to suffer, and maybe it's not that big of a deal to just make more of what I'm already cooking or start slow and eat takeout occasionally. So, am I the jerk? My ex, Karen, lied about me on social media. I got revenge. So, background info. I dated the same girl since I was a senior in high school to my 2nd year of university. We are both the same age. We broke up plenty of times and got back together, but she officially broke up with me for the last time in my 2nd year of uni. It's been 2 years since then, and I'm in 4th year. I still care about her dearly, to be deathly honest, and she knows it. She has made countless YouTube videos with her friends talking about embarrassing things about our relationship, but giving me an alias so that people don't know who she's talking about, or has made these cryptic tweets about me that I can clearly tell are about me. But when I message her to take it down or delete it, she says it has nothing to do with me. I'm acting like a weirdo and that I need to leave her alone. Honestly, for a while, I thought maybe I was just going crazy or just blinded by the fact that I still cared about her, and that she really isn't thinking about me, and it's just my own self-pity that is making me think that she's doing these things to get a rise out of me. I told my friends about this, and they told me that people are starting to read it as if I'm not over her and that I'm deluded and it's starting to get stalkerish. I listened to their advice because it's depressing enough as it is and tried to move on with my life. A year went by, and one day my sister told me that she had gotten a follow request on Instagram from my ex. I left it alone and didn't make a big deal out of it. Probably at like 3 a.m., I got 2 notifications that said I had got a message from her and she had tagged me and my sister in her recent post. I thought I was dreaming, so I closed my phone and went to bed. I checked my phone the next morning and the notification was still there. So I screenshotted it and clicked on it for evidence, just in case, I told myself. I clicked on the notification, but she must have deleted it because it sent me to the Instagram equivalent of like a 404 error page. I asked her why she tagged me and my sister, and she went off on me, telling me that it's been 2 years since we broke up and that I've become a stalker or something to that degree. She posted our conversation on Twitter and cut out my name. She made a bunch of tweets like, "Seriously, you need to leave me alone," and stuff like that. I was getting messages from mutual friends that I'm losing my mind and need to see a therapist. That was the last straw for me. I posted the screenshots of the notifications, then took screenshots of every cryptic tweet I felt was about me and explained why. And I called her a jerk because she knows exactly what she's doing and it's evil. I was very satisfied with myself because it seems that a lot of people are a lot more understanding of me. But there are also a lot of people who are telling me what I did was extremely mean and out of spite. I don't know. She honestly made me feel like a psychopath, and it just feels like this was the right thing to do. Am I the jerk? Am I the jerk for not participating in Christmas activities with my wife and kids? My wife has always been more into holidays than me because she didn't have much of a family and they were dysfunctional. I grew up in a huge family and have already experienced as many big Christmases as I need. It wasn't a big deal, but since we have kids, ages 2, 5, and 12, she is obsessed with making it special. Over the years, she started a lot of new traditions that include decorating the tree and a bookshelf with the kids. She knows that I don't like to bother with any of that. I mean, I let her do it, but I don't want to be involved since weekends are my only days off and that's just unnecessary work. The thing is, she keeps asking me if I want to help,
or go with them to see lights, which takes forever, or do gingerbread houses. I could not have been clearer. So today, when she put up the tree, I just avoided all of that by staying in the bedroom with the door closed. She says that I'm the jerk for refusing to participate and that I'm acting like I have holiday-related trauma, when really it's the weekend, it's my time, and I just want to relax. I don't see what the big deal is. I get that she's trying to give the kids what she didn't have, but it's not my fault that she had a hard childhood. It seems like something she needs to get over instead of trying to play catch-up. Wife wants to make a big deal out of Christmas when I just want a break. Am I the jerk for wanting to scale back? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
You're a mean one, Mr. OP. Seriously though, who crapped in this guy's eggnog?
Entitled mother-in-law wants me to spend a fortune on our wedding. I'm a 33-year-old doctor, pediatrician, and am getting married to my fiance this November. I have a somewhat controlling mother-in-law, and wedding planning has been an absolute nightmare so far. Okay, here's the situation. My fiance doesn't have an income because of her medical situation, but she'll go back to work later, so therefore I'm financing the entire wedding. I've set a specific budget for the wedding and honeymoon and planned for everything: dates, guests, food, etc. Mother-in-law wanted things her way and made a fuss about everything since that's her only daughter. I found out she and her husband found a venue they wanted us to have the wedding at, but the problem is A, it's very expensive, and B, it's several towns away. My family even said they'd have to drop out if I chose this venue, so I told mother-in-law I don't want it. She kept trying to convince me and made so much fuss about it to the point where she made it her hill to die on. I kept saying no to her and she kept insisting. I got home from work on Tuesday and found my mother-in-law and father-in-law and a couple of her relatives there, visiting when there was no one home. She started talking about it again while I was resting on the couch taking my socks off, and I said, "Hold on, who the heck starts a conversation like that? I just sat down, for goodness sake. Let me catch my breath, will you?" But that didn't stop her. She sternly said that her daughter deserves to have her wedding at that venue, and I'm a doctor, I can afford it, and distance was just an excuse. She said she made reservations on the phone, and I had to pay for it within a set time while pointing at me with her finger, which I thought was very rude and very disrespectful, followed by, "Or else." I asked, "Or else what?" She said if I choose any other venue, then she won't attend the wedding. I didn't budge like she thought I would. I just leaned forward and said, "All right, I guess the trash took itself out then." The entire house went silent, complete shutdown. She stood up and called me disrespectful and a jerk to expect her to take my insults as gospel, and argued that I was being a cheapskate, but I replied that she was acting like a gold digger and that she needs to sit down and shut up and let me and my fiance handle this or go home. She started crying, then walked out, and everyone followed. Father-in-law was about to lose it on me. My fiance found out and said I disrespected her mom and treated her like crap. I explained how unreasonable her mom was with her demands and total lack of consideration for me, my hard-earned money, and my family. She said she was going to settle this with her without my intervention, but honestly, it blew her mind how low I stooped with how I treated her mom. She wanted some time alone because she's thinking I might be someone else hiding behind a mask with how I behaved, which hurt me to no end. I think I messed up. I just think I should have waited for my fiance to deal with it, but I felt overwhelmed when she spoke to me like that. Well, who do you agree with, OP or mother-in-law? Please let us know.
I think you need to run away from all of them, OP, especially if she's going to defend her mother after acting like that.
Karen loses it on a police officer over a 12-pack of water bottles. For some context, I'm a police officer, and in my country, our officers don't really have the same kit that you see in TV shows. I'm part of a specialty unit that is basically a quick response team for situations that could turn bad or just need specialty officers. We have the same kit as the stereotypical American officer, the vest, the AR, the less than lethal weapons, and that sort of jazz. It does vary from officer to officer, so it's safe to assume that I stand out quite a bit. My country also has very strict laws, so it's not common to see people walking down the street with a concealed carry or anything like that. And from here on out, I'm going to use American terminology just to make it easier for everyone to understand. Now on to the story. Myself and a few other officers were dispatched to a call involving a male having a PTSD episode and was threatening to hurt anyone that came near his house. We ended up staying there for a good few hours, trying to help the man calm down and get him the help that he needed, which thankfully we managed to do and no one was harmed. So obviously, after I went to that call, I decided to stop at the shops and get something to have as a quick meal to get some energy and calories in me. As I was going down the aisles, I noticed an elderly couple struggling to pick up some 12 packs of water bottles, so I helped them load their bottles into the trolley. Perfectly harmless, right? What could go wrong? That's when a wild Karen appears.
Excuse me.
Me, thinking she has a question about something involving policing. Yes, ma'am? Karen.
I need you to carry these to my car.
She was pointing to the packs of water. Me. I'm sorry, ma'am, but as you can clearly see, I'm a police officer. I can't be carrying things around for you because I need to be ready to drop everything in a moment's notice. I'm more than happy to help you load them into your cart and help you find an employee, but unfortunately, at the moment, that's the best I can do for you. Karen scoffs.
You aren't a police officer. You're just some wannabe airsofter.
I just want to reference here that I'm in my full kit. Me. No, I very much am a real police officer. I'm part of a specialty unit. That's why I don't wear the uniform you normally see officers wearing. If you wish, I can provide you with my ID and number. Karen.
It's illegal to pretend to be a cop. I'm calling the police and you're gonna get arrested.
She proceeds to call the non-emergency number and tells the dispatcher about me. Me. Karen, you're completely in your right to report me and verify I actually am one. But in the meantime, I'm going to continue shopping. Call for a police impersonator that's armed comes over the radio, and I tell dispatch it's me, but to still send regular patrol officers over. Karen.
You aren't going anywhere, jerk.
Proceeds to kick the back of my knee, making my leg buckle and me fall over. Me. That's it, Karen. You're under arrest for assault. Karen proceeds to kick and scream, and all the while I handcuff her, I take her out of the store, and a few store employees are following, trying to stop a crowd from forming. Just as I pulled Karen out of the store to remove her from the public, 2 patrol officers pull up. One was a supervisor. They asked me why she's in cuffs, so I explained the story, and the supervisor questioned Karen about what happened. She ended up saying that I yelled at her and attacked her, so she kicked my knee to get away from me. Supervisor obviously very quickly took my sidearm and put me into the back of his car. Standard procedure just to cover the department, and took Karen out of her cuffs, and the supervisor apologized profusely and asked if she wanted to press charges. She obviously very happily replied with a yes. So supervisor, Karen, she was very hesitant and insisted she must be going and they can just email her. Store manager and another officer all went into the security room to watch the CCTV footage. The footage showed us talking, her pulling the phone out, me walking away, and then her kicking my leg. Karen was instantly handcuffed and taken back to the station to do all of the booking and all that fun stuff. Here, most of what I know is from talking to other officers, as I was immediately placed on unpaid suspension because I was being investigated for assault. It turns out Karen had a warrant for theft, and once the officers found out, she kicked them a few times and was eventually placed in a cell. On the day of the court hearing, she was found guilty of assault, making a false police report and wasting police resources. Her theft charges were dropped as a plea deal. She got sentenced 1 year jail time and was forced to take anger management classes. Once I was cleared of any wrongdoing, I sued her for lost wages, about 6 months of suspension, and defamation of character because she ended up getting my face published on basically every bit of local news during the whole investigation, and I was labeled as a power-hungry jerk. That ain't a fun reputation to have. So in the end of it, because Karen was too lazy to load a 12-pack of water into her own car, she was sent to jail for a year, lost her job, lost her boyfriend, basically only has visitation rights for her kids. Father used the assault case to get custody of them, and lost a good chunk of change. Edit. I don't want to sound ungrateful for the awards, but y'all please save your money. 2. I was placed on leave for so long because I wasn't always viewable by the CCTV. There was fear of what could end up happening, and because I needed to prove that the department could trust me to be back on the unit. Edit 3. I do have a union, and they were amazing. Only thing they couldn't help with was the pay, as the suspension was technically a punishment and investigation for not following procedures and not calming Karen down. Misunderstood girlfriend tried to get me in trouble. So one of my older brothers has this entitled girlfriend that often gets her way. For example, if the majority of us want to play a board game, she'll cry about it to my brother that she doesn't want to play and tells my brother not to play, so we end up not playing because there's not enough players. Whenever she came over to visit, she would make herself at home. Seriously, I saw her using my PlayStation without my permission, and when I asked her to stop, she said it's okay since we're basically family. She doesn't like to share things, and on holidays like Christmas, she often asks for presents from all of us, even my younger sister who doesn't even have a job, because supposedly we're family. Okay, now that you understand how entitled she is, let's get to the part which annoyed me about her the most. My older brother, his name is Man. It's pronounced as Man. That's right, you address him as Man because his name is Man. So one day during a gathering, we were talking about the silly things that Man did recently because we all know he's the type to do funny but stupid things. And I commented, "Me, that sounds like such a man thing to do." The girlfriend blew up. She was bright red, swung her long blonde hair as if it was a weapon, and glared at me as if I was the biggest scum in the world. Girlfriend,
That's such a disgusting thing to say. You're such a jerk. What he did has nothing to do with his gender. You should apologize.
so it took me a while on why she was blowing up like this until I finally realized, oh wow, she thought I meant his gender, not his name.
Me.
I think you misunderstood.
Shut it. I can't believe Mom raised such a jerk like you.
She meant my mom, but addresses her as Mom because apparently we're family.
Me.
What? No, seriously, you misunderstood.
I should have you disowned for your toxic thinking. Once I tell Mom about this, she's going to have my back, and she will have her vengeance on you.
I don't say anything. As she continued ranting on, I looked at my younger sister as a way to say, is she for real? My sister knows I meant man, not man, so she just thought this was funny and shrugged and just kept watching her going on our full-on rant. After she finished her long speech, she marched out of the room and grabbed my brother and my mom and told them what I said and that I should be punished for my narrow thinking. My brother and mother knew immediately what I meant, so they tried to tell her, but she refused to believe them because she knew what she had heard. With my mom and brother in tow, she came back to the living room and screeched that I'm in major trouble and that Mom is for sure on her side. My mom rolled her eyes and spoke in our native language so she couldn't hear what we were talking about. Also, our language can sound a bit mean if we put in a lot of the accent and exaggeration in a loud voice. Mom, pretend I'm yelling at you. Me, why? Mom, because she's crazy and won't shut up and I have dinner to cook. Me, can't we just tell her the misunderstanding? Mom, do you really want to try? I then proceed to stomp out of the room as she smirked with her arms folded. During dinner, we all gathered at the dining table, and the girlfriend kept smirking as she eyes me down and kept making indirect comments about me. My sister then leans into my ear and whispered, "Man is planning on dumping her." And I choked on my noodles, trying to suppress my laughter. The girlfriend looked confused on why I was covering my mouth, but I just kept stifling my laugh. A week later, Man announced he broke up with her, and he seemed like a happy and free man. Edit. To some of you guys wondering why they didn't break up sooner, because at the beginning of the relationship, she wasn't like this. She was weird, but she was more calmer. Then, around their 3-year anniversary, they moved in together into a flat. Then my mom said she's basically like family, and she thought they'd definitely be getting married soon, and we'll have a new sister. That's when she started acting entitled towards us. She started treating our house like it's her house, and she started acting more spoiled. Around their 4-year anniversary, Man was discussing to me and my sister how he wants to break up, but because they live together, split the rent and utilities, it's a bit hard for him to do so. Also, I'm pretty sure he's also doing it for the side benefit of things they did together.
Man, sure am glad he dumped her.
The tiniest thing we offer, with literally every modification possible? You got it. So this just happened tonight. I've been employed by Taco Bell for the better part of 21 years. In that time, I've seen a lot of stupidity, but tonight kind of took the cake. We've been offering a taco version of a chicken sandwich for a couple weeks now. In that time, people have tried to add a few things here and there to it, but the sandwich, taco, is so small that not a lot fits. I've had to turn down a couple requests for some modifications because what the customer ordered won't fit on the taco without making it a soppy, sauce-covered mess. Until delivery, corporate has the mindset of, if the customer wants it, they can have it. Delivery is compliant with the directive. Me, not so much. I will make what the customer wants to the best of my ability, but if it can't fit or breaks while trying, I try to do my best I can and include a note as to why I couldn't do what the customer wanted. I worked a 21-hour day yesterday at 2 different stores and was not up to working today. However, I dutifully reported for my shift, just not in my normal chipper mood. From the moment I clocked in right up until this happened, the day was somewhat uneventful. The normal crappy customers, the normal crappy employees, and a couple people who are in such a good mood that it almost seems unhealthy. At about 10:30, a delivery order comes in for 2 chicken sandwich tacos, plus a few other things. Not too bad for a normal order. However, this order was anything but normal. The chicken sandwich tacos literally included every possible item that we dress tacos and burritos with. By this point, I'm tired, cranky, and in a mood. I decided that I had had enough. Enter malicious compliance. I placed the 2 pieces of 3.5-inch flatbread into a bowl. I added each of the 4 sauces, plus extra of the ones he asked for as well. Then the cheese, red sauce, chicken, steak, rice, beef, beans, black beans, lettuce, tomato, more cheese, more cheddar cheese, guac, and jalapenos on top of the now soaked flatbread. On top of this saucy mess, I laid one of the smallest pieces of chicken we had fried up on top of it. I then placed a lid on the bowl, sealed it up, bagged it up. This thing weighed at least 2 pounds versus the normal 5.3 ounces, placed the name on the bag, and sent it on its way. Not 25 minutes later, we got a call from the customer asking us to refund her order because it was nothing like she expected. I told her that a refund was not possible because she received the food exactly as she had ordered it. She promptly hung up on me. I smiled from ear to ear, knowing that the customer probably threw them away because she wanted to be special. You are, honey, but not for the reason you think. A manager is keeping a file on me, y'all. First off, I'm good at my job. Been doing this a long time. I've never even been written up. I have been called out twice in 2 years. I have had 1 guest complain in 2 years, and it was fabrication. I play all their little games with caring about our Ziosk usage and liquor sale percentage, and I'm always highlighted in the good job color when they tape up the printouts. I bust my own tables despite paying tip share for hosts to do it, etc. No performance-related reasons to be singled out like this. This girl is 26 and has been a manager for less than a year. I've been with the restaurant since fall of 2019 and returned from furlough in April to find her as the new manager. At first, she seemed to be trying to get on my good side, giving me good sections, etc. Over the summer, I saw my schedule slowly drop from 5 shifts to 3 shifts. Last month, she tried to take it to 2. I approached her and she played dumb, blaming it on the GM, who barely glances at his labor percentage before approving it. He didn't remove my shift. It went back to 3 after that. She's also been creating these insanely awful sections for me, like literally drawing new floor charts and giving me the tables that are notoriously hard to seat anyone at. I can tell who is front of house that day based on what section I have. This past weekend, she scheduled me as an SA on a Saturday night. What the heck? Whatever, I'll find someone to trade with. Just tonight, a server swapped with an SA. My coworker, who actually hates serving, offered to trade. He was told, "No, Metal Barbie needs to work it." Guy manager went to the very hands-off GM on my behalf. This conversation yielded the fact that apparently girl manager has been keeping a literal file and notebook on me for the last 2 months. None of it is write-up worthy, it's just petty crap. She watches me all night and documents what I do or don't do. She's now using it to justify to GM why she is punishing me with the schedule. Guy manager told me about it because he's halfway out the door mentally and thought it was messed up to be alienating and targeting someone like that. I am beyond creeped out. Who keeps a dang notebook like that on their employee? Why? Like, what does it even say in it? Ate a bite of dead food? Disappeared from the floor for 5 minutes? What the heck? There's no way she's got one on everybody, which would make it more fair, but still be bizarre. I've not done a dang thing to this girl. Her boyfriend is also a manager, as was mine until last week, and they were cool with each other. I don't know where this random hatred came from. The only thing I can think of is that we recently took a transfer SA/host from girl manager's old location. People are transferred when promoted to avoid favoritism. They were apparently super close, and most of the people at my location view him as a snake who tells girl manager anything anyone says about her. I've never even said anything actually to him, but who knows if he wasn't around a corner or something when I said my section sucked. I don't know. The SA shift in question is tomorrow, and I will definitely be calling in sick to dude manager specifically. I'm being urged by ex-manager's spouse and 2 coworkers to go to HR or the district manager since the GM is apparently allowing this notebook. Yikes on a bike, guys. Wow. Am I the jerk for telling my kids something my husband told me not to? I, 38 female, have 3 kids, 13 female, 2 16-year-olds, 1 male, 1 female. They're both twins. All 3 of my kids have friend groups and are dating. 16-year-olds have been dating the same people and have been friends with generally the same group since middle school. 13-year-old just recently got a girlfriend and only has 1 friend at the moment. Me and my husband, who's 42, have always been fine with their partners and friends coming over, as long as they shoot us a text first. Our only rule is that there is no bringing a new person over every single day, no staying up past 1 a.m. max. Recently, my husband has been trying to change our family dynamic a lot. A family breakfast and dinner instead of our usual grab and go to our room, constant outings and game nights, etc. We have family time often, but not to this extent, 4 to 5 times a week now. Last time, he proposed the idea of a family meeting to me. We have never had one of these, never needed to. If something needs to change, we talk about it whenever we're all free. He discussed this to me in private. I told him I hated the idea. The meeting was apparently supposed to be about how he no longer wanted our kids to have company over and that he doesn't want any outside kids in our house. All of my kids have very sweet friends. Some of them even offer to wash dishes after dinner, kind of sweet. None of them are loud, messy, bad influences, etc. Maybe a few swears or inappropriate talk, but I chalk that up to them being teenagers. He asked me to keep this a secret, that it was mandatory, and he'd tell the kids the night before. I was upset. I also had to be forced to a family meeting because he refused to even budge about it being mandatory, so I ended up chatting to a friend about it over the phone. Turns out, my 13 was listening in, and I told her about it since she asked. My 16-year-olds then joined in. We all talked about it together and agreed it was a weird and unwanted change. Kids asked me to talk with them about it because they thought it was unfair they all of a sudden couldn't have friends over for some unstated reason. I told my husband the full story. I also told him that everyone thought it was unnecessary for it to be a meeting and mandatory, that he should have just told us all up front if he had an issue with any friends, etc. Husband blew up about how this meeting was incredibly important, still refused to say why it was, and that we would all be coming whether we liked it or not, no matter what. The meeting is in 2 days. I don't want to fully blow my husband off since this is apparently important, but since he refuses to tell us all what the actual issue is, I want to just take my kids out of the house for this appointed meeting unless he actually tells me what his issue with our kids' company is. I see no true point in it if all the guests are respectful and haven't made trouble. Edit. We are going to the old man's meeting now, but if it blows up in his face and kids are upset with him, I won't punish them for disagreeing, or even straight up telling him he's wrong. That technique won't work. Try it. I'm going to start off by saying that I'm not proud of this one. It resulted in a good person getting hurt, and if I had a chance to do it all over again, I would have made different choices. That being said, it does fit the sub. When I was a teenager, I was really into martial arts, and I was training at a dojo 5 times a week. Master James was a fantastic martial artist, and he had a real talent for teaching. His only problem was that he thought techniques should be taught and practiced the same way that he learned. There should be no variations. If you followed his dogma, you would learn a lot and become a competent fighter. But I was the kind of person who would always look for ways to do things better. One day, I was teaching the newer students how to do a shoulder throw. You would grab hold of someone's arm, put your back to their chest, and throw them over your shoulder. I started by showing them exactly how I was taught. Then I told them, we won't be doing this in practice, but if you really wanted to hurt someone, you can rotate their arm inwards like this. Rotating the arm gave you the same leverage to perform the throw, but it would put additional pressure on the shoulder, bending it in an unnatural way that would damage the rotator cuff. Master James heard me saying this and told me that the technique wouldn't work with that kind of modification. I tried to explain my rationale behind it, but he wasn't open to dissent, and he wanted to prove me wrong. He told me, "Try it on me. Do it like it's a real fight." Here's the thing, I knew it would work. I knew it would hurt him. Even so, he asked for it, so I should do it, right? That's what I thought anyway. So with the whole class watching, I did the throw. I rotated the arm, and I could feel him resisting at first. Then he must have felt what was happening, and the only thing he could do was go with it and try to minimize the damage. But it was too late. I threw him down onto the mats and felt a pop against my shoulder. Master James laid there for a few moments, breathing heavily. Then he stood up without using his right arm and addressed the class. We are going to stick to the techniques that I taught you. His right arm was in a sling for the next month. Aunt tries to take my computer parts and my cousin saved me. My friend and I were laughing about this and he convinced me to post it here. Some context. It was recently my 16th birthday and my parents thought I was old enough to build my own gaming computer. I carefully picked out parts and had them laid out on my desk. My cousin was looking to upgrade her computer. She's 13. So we've got entitled aunt, we've got dad, mom, amazing cousin, and me. My aunt has never shown behavior like this to us, but now I'm sure her daughter has to suffer through it all of the time. Anyways, so my aunt and my cousin were visiting, among a few other family and friends, for my birthday, and my cousin and I were at my desk in my room talking about the parts, and I was showing off all of the stuff I had very meticulously placed on my desk. We were in the middle of a conversation of how she wants to buy a new graphics card and some other components to make her build better when my aunt walks in. Entitled aunt.
Hey, do you guys want anything to drink? Oh, hey, OP, are these your new computer doohickeys? Too technical for me, I'm sure.
Me. Yeah, these are all the things that I picked out.
So, what's this one?
Oh, that's a power supply. It's kind of like a battery pack.
Wow, OP, you kids are very smart to know all this stuff. Where's the screen?
Me. Oh, the monitor hasn't arrived yet. We just ordered it. Mom from the kitchen. Okay, everyone, dinner is ready, and we're cutting cake afterwards. I'm relieved to be pulled away from the awkwardness and head to dinner, but this is where the real trouble starts. Entitled aunt.
So, I heard OP was building a new computer. How cool. Actually, Awesome Cousin is upgrading hers. Right, Awesome Cousin?
Cousin. Oh yeah, I want to upgrade the graphics card. Dad. Interesting. So, what are you looking for? NVIDIA or something else? Cousin. Mine is pretty old, so maybe something like an RTX card? I noticed OP has a 2060 Super. Something like that would be cool. Entitled aunt.
Oh, wow. So, OP already has the one you want?
Cousin. Sure, Mom, but I don't.
Well, shipping times are slow because of what's going on. So what if Awesome Cousin could take your graphic cartridge, OP, and you could order another one? Your screen isn't even here. And what can you even do without a screen, you know? When it arrives, we'll pay you back for the cartridge too.
Dad. Well, see, OP really worked hard to pick out all of the parts, and there's no telling when other things will arrive. Entitled aunt.
Well, it's the easiest option. Just think about it.
Later, after dinner and cake, we go back to start figuring out how to slap all the components together. Entitled aunt walks in and starts asking for the graphics cartridge. She looks angry, but I still keep rejecting all her tries to take it. Eventually, my parents come in and try to get her to leave. Dad. Look, sis, if you want, we'll order one for you. Awesome Cousin's birthday is also in another month, and I wouldn't mind gifting her a new graphics card. He looks pointedly at my cousin. As long as it's not too expensive. Cousin. Thanks, Uncle. I don't mind waiting. I've saved money though. I could get it myself. Entitled aunt.
No, no, no. I'm your older sister. I'm not leaving this house without that cartridge. You were always such a miser. You aren't even smart enough to see the sense in my argument. Cousin, come here. Which is it? We'll grab it and leave. Come on.
Then my mad lass of a cousin points at the box not for graphics card and instead to the box of the old computer mouse that I was going to throw out. Entitled aunt angrily grabs it and storms out with Awesome Cousin in tow and gets in her car. They live in another state, and I'm sure that Awesome Cousin got heck from her mom the whole way home when she found out that the graphics cartridge was a computer mouse. We haven't heard from them for a day or two, but I called Awesome Cousin on their house's landline phone, and she said she did get chewed out, but she doesn't know what the punishment will be yet. I'm afraid that the money she's been saving will be taken away, but if this blows up and she calls back, then I'll add an update. Anyways, thanks for reading this far. Am I the jerk for bringing up a report against my guidance counselor and potentially hurting her career? This story starts a few years back, but the events I feel I might be the jerk for happened this past week. So, short backstory.
I'm chronically ill, and I used to be out sick from school for months at a time. I was in middle school the first time I was out of school for a long period of time. It started out really hard to get the proper documentation for my absence and then for an extended medical leave, aka I needed to be tutored from home because I couldn't physically come to school. Eventually, I got a doctor who was extremely helpful and had continued contact with the school. The issue of truancy that popped up because of the time between my first absence and my first tutoring session was dropped, and it seemed like everything was going smoothly. However, when I started feeling better, I had to slowly transition back to school. On my first day back, I was supposed to go to 3 classes, then meet with my guidance counselor to discuss how I was feeling. While I was walking to my second period class and talking to my friends that I hadn't seen in a while, my guidance counselor pulled me away from them and told me, these are the exact words, quoted from the report we made years ago.
If you are absent one more day and cause another ounce of work for me, I'll raise truancy charges against your family and have you taken away from your mother.
We later reported her to the principal. They didn't care. She's still employed. Here's where I think I'm a bit of a jerk. 4 years later, I'm in my new counselor's office talking about my college application process. My new counselor tells me that my old counselor is being highly considered for most loved staff member. I kinda chuckled at the news and told my current counselor about what happened and the report my family made. Apparently, this caused some discussion about the old counselor. She is no longer being considered for the award, and now, from what the school has told my family privately, the matter is being reopened and looked into. Something about her having multiple complaints. I feel pretty guilty and like a bit of a jerk because it happened so long ago. It's not exactly a good thing to potentially ruin someone's career. Am I the jerk? Lady called the cops on me for listening to music in my own house. So the house next door was turned into a daycare in the beginning of August, and I've never had any problems with them until a few days ago. In my country, the layout of the houses is completely different, and we all have walls around our houses. I don't know if this is relevant, but okay. I was hanging in the backyard listening to some music. It was very hot, and I wanted to get away from the electronics for a while, so I decided to just chill there. From my porch, I heard the kids playing and screaming, so I turned the music up a little bit louder and figured it would be okay. My mom was at work and my father was out of town for a few days, so it wouldn't bother anyone. Just for clarification, the songs were family friendly, but they were mostly gay, so I turned off the music and went inside. As the sun was setting, that's when I heard the doorbell. I thought it was mail since I was expecting a package to be delivered. I answered it, and that's when I knew trouble was coming. Me. Who is it? Entitled Mom.
Oh, I am Entitled Mom. My son goes to the daycare next door.
I went outside and opened the gate just to see the Karen of the Karens right in front of me. The woman had the typical Karen haircut and blonde, almost yellow hair. I just put a smile on my face and tried to be nice. Me. How can I help you? Entitled Mom.
Hi, sweetie. I noticed you were listening to some music. It was you, right? I recognized the voice from the singing.
Me. Yeah, it was me. Again, how can I help you?
You know, that wasn't an appropriate song for a young lady like you.
Me. Pardon me? Karen.
Sorry if this seems out of the blue. I'm just trying to look after the kids, you know? The volume was really loud, and the lyrics were very inappropriate. Where is your mommy so that I can talk to her?
Yes, she said mommy as if I were 5. For some reason, I started laughing. Thought the situation was funny, since I've never imagined this kind of thing would happen to me. I have a history of laughing in very inappropriate situations. As I laughed, Entitled Mom's face would just get redder and redder, and she started to pound her feet on the ground and pout at me.
What is so funny?
Me. Nothing.
Where is your mother? I need to talk to her about your behavior.
Me. Well, my parents aren't home, and no, the lyrics were not inappropriate. It didn't even have any bad words in it, and even if it had, I don't think my mommy would mind.
Well, I'm going to wait here until they get back, just to be sure. I don't want my kid and the others to be listening to that BS.
Me. You'll wait until my mother gets home?
Why? I will if I have to.
I just closed the gate in her face and went back inside. She started screaming, but I can't remember what she was saying. After a few minutes, I heard the doorbell again, but this time it wasn't her. It was the police. She called the cops on me and claimed that I was mentally harming people with my loud, inappropriate music. I explained everything to the officer,
and he asked if he could hear the song. I showed it to him, and he said it was fine and warned me to keep it down so I don't bother the neighbors. The entitled mom kept staring at me as I closed the gate. I just smiled and waved at her as it closed. I'm pretty sure I heard her say something really mean my way. A few hours later, she harassed my mother in the entrance of the house, and also as my mom parked. My mom just ignored her. We don't work here, but what the heck? I'll take your order. In my youth, my family was rather poor, lower middle class. My dad, who could not read or write, worked graveyard shift at a creamery. My mother, a housewife, was very active in PTA and other community activities. My dad's job paid the bills and put staple foods on the table, but left no room for comfort expenses. As soon as I was old enough, I got a paper route. The monthly funds went towards padding our family budget. One simple joy we took a pleasure in was once a month, we would splurge on a quiet salad and pizza dinner at the local Pizza Hut. This story takes place 1987 to 1988. I was about 14 at the time. We arrived one Sunday afternoon at the local pizza parlor. We went in, we sat down at our regular table, and we waited for the waitress to come take our order. We talked, we waited, we cracked jokes and waited some more. We started to realize something was not quite right after 10 to 15 minutes. We had heard the phone ring a few times, but other than that, there was none of the usual sounds of bustling workers in the kitchen area. Curious, I slid out of the bench and approached the cashier's counter. Looking around in the back area, I could not see a living soul. "Hello," I called out. Nothing. "Anybody back there?" Again, no response. Now I was feeling that distinct, edgy feeling one gets while watching a horror movie. I returned to my parents and informed them what I had discovered, or should I say, lack of discovery. "Check the restrooms," my dad suggested. My mom agreed. She checked the women's room while Dad checked the men's room. No one. Now we were all very concerned and more than a little frightened. We had heard on TV and in newspaper stories how sometimes a robbery goes bad and it was only discovered later on. "Call the police?" Mom suggested, pointing at the phone on the wall, which chose that very moment to ring out loud, making all of us jump in fright. "The freezer?" I said over the ringing phone. "What?" Mom asked. "The freezer. In horror movies, that's where the bodies are always at, right?" "I'll look," I said. "The heck you will," my mom responded with authority. "Your father will check it out." My beloved father, the man I admired most in the world, pointed at me and said, "He runs faster." In the end, I did indeed go behind the counter by the simple fact my parents were too busy arguing over who would go check in the back to notice me walking off. First, I armed myself with an impressively large and surprisingly sharp round pizza cutter sitting on a counter. Next, I checked the entirety of the back area. The back door was locked from the inside. Then I checked the manager's office cubicle. Finally, I approached the freezer. I knew what I was going to find. I've seen this scene in plenty of movies. By this point, both my parents noticed my absence and had joined me, staring at the freezer door with morbid anticipation. I grabbed the handle, pulled, and threw the door open, and sure enough, there staring back at us was boxes of pizza-making supplies. But no bodies? What? I was, truth to tell, very disappointed. Nobody, nothing, no workers. We were the only ones in the pizza parlor. "Hello," came a call from the front. I'm pretty sure if a little more effort had been put into the jump scare, we would have hit our heads on the ceiling. Quickly, we approached the front. I recall my heart racing a mile, thinking an employee had arrived, only to find a middle-aged gentleman waiting along with his wife by the "wait to be seated" sign. "Oh, there you are," he said. "We would like a table for two." "I'm sorry, sir," my mother replied. "We don't work here." "Okay, but we want a table for two." "There is nobody here. We checked," Mom explained. "Yes, I can see the place is empty. So can we have a table in the back?" the man pressed. "We don't work here. As far as we can tell, there is nobody here that's supposed to be here," Mom further elaborated. "So where can we sit?" "Oh, just find a place to park your butts. The place is empty," my dad butted in. My father, bluntly, honest, and always absurdly practical. "Honey, just call the police. Let them know what we found." With that, my dad scuttled off to the salad bar. Let it be known, my father was never one to let an opportunity for a meal go to waste. It took over an hour for a police officer to arrive. The reason it took so long, as the officer would explain later, was that dispatch had downgraded our call to non-emergency status. During the wait, however, we had to deal with a few things. Waiter, we would like our menus, please. My dad, being the helpful sort with a decidedly odd sense of humor, gave the couple menus. 1 sweet tea and 1 unsweet with lemon, please. I was already hitting the fountain drink machine. I was there, it was there, and Mom had found the coffee supplies, so what the heck, I brought them their drinks. We would like 2 dinner salads and a large pepperoni pizza. Dad pointed to the plates by the salad bar and told them, might be a few minutes on the pizza. Gotta wait for an employee to show up first, but go ahead and eat as much salad as you want. Then one of the nearby churches let out.
Hello, there are 4 of us.
Hi, we've got 2 more coming.
I tried calling several times. Can I please get 2 large pizzas to go?
By the time the police officer arrived, my mom and I were effectively running the parlor along with a guy who came in from the church with his family. He said he once worked at the other Pizza Hut in town while in college. Mom took orders, I delivered drinks and food, I got tips, and the young man made the pizzas. My dad? He was busy eating and chatting with the customers. As for people paying for their food, neither my father or I could calculate our way past 10 fingers and 10 toes. Mom, on the other hand, was one of those super annoying people of her generation that could calculate a whole string of numbers in her head faster than you could type on a digital calculating machine. Really, really annoying. So she figured up the amount, including tax, and had them pay with a check. The checks were slid under the cash register. The register itself we did not even try and touch. When the officer arrived, we were quite happy to recognize him as one of the officers my dad was friends with. Back then, police officers on the night shift could come by the creamery my dad worked at and get free ice cream from the employees' break room. Dad would often take time to shoot the breeze with them for a few minutes. Officer Shield, as I will call him, immediately recognized my dad and asked him what was going on. My dad explained the situation and I butted in, sounding a little disappointed, I'm sure, that we didn't find anyone in the freezer. Officer Shield first went to the register, opened it, and confirmed that there was still cash in the till box, then walked around the inside and outside of the building. No signs whatsoever of any kind of a disturbance. He called in and waited for orders from higher up. In the meantime, never let it be said a police officer is willing to pass up an opportunity for free food. 20 to 30 minutes later, I can't recall, but eventually he got a call back telling him to lock up the place. They were trying to contact the owner of that franchise. But problem, he couldn't find the keys to the parlor, and the main doors had to be locked from either the outside with a key or the doors locked from the inside with the latch, then exit out the back door, which required a key to lock the bolt from outside. Officer Shield called that fact back in. A few minutes later, the lead officer on shift arrived to evaluate the situation. What did he find? A pizza parlor half full of customers happily chowing down on pizza. When he asked, understandably confused, why Officer Shield called in his report saying there was no employees on the premises when clearly customers were being served, at which point I oh so happily piped in, while handing off a pizza to go to a waiting customer. Oh, we don't work here, we're just being helpful. So eventually the police managed to contact the owner after a couple of hours. The owner contacted the manager and the manager came storming in, lots of anger and confusion. The manager, in a fluster, tried to accuse my parents and I of theft of company property, but Officer Shield would have none of that and pointed out the checks, the order slips, and the list of anything we used. Then he pointed out the fact that we could have left the place empty and thieves could have ransacked the parlor. She backed down and focused on contacting the workers that were supposed to be on duty. Turns out the assistant manager had found out that very morning her boyfriend was having an affair. She had then gone on a tirade, taking out her anger on her male employees. They chose not to take it and walked out. The assistant manager then just decided to up and quit, leaving the shop wide open. As for my parents and I, we were informed by Officer Shield very firmly that should we, for whatever reason, find ourselves in such a situation again, it would be far more helpful if we refrained from being helpful. And yes, we did pay for our food and drinks, but we still got banned for life from that parlor. Office-appropriate attire. This was about 5 years ago. Setting the stage, I had been with this massive global company, one of its manufacturing divisions, for about 7 years. I was Tier 3 plus IT support, mostly behind the scenes stuff, the online meetings with folks, on call as well. The guy who hired, Steve, department director, was great. I was, and still am, a jeans and t-shirt. I have like 200 plus silk screen tees, nothing offensive, but pleasantly entertaining. Steve decided to exit the corporate world. I did not want his job, so massive global company found and hired a new director. Jay and I got along well, I thought, but then I started to see that he was intimidated by my skill set and ability to resolve issues with either a PowerShell script I already had or by a command line, very quickly fixing issues. In a matter of seconds, using methods that he could not understand. He was a GUI person. Jay started looking for things to discipline me for. Here we go. Jay decided that wearing my t-shirts was unprofessional. Me. What do you mean by unprofessional? Jay.
It gives the impression to others that you don't respect them and they don't think they can trust you to do your job correctly.
Me. Others? Who? Who thinks I can't do my job? Jay.
Look, I'm not going to argue this. You need to come to work in office-appropriate attire. Period.
Me. So, I'm not capable of doing my job unless I'm wearing office-appropriate attire? Not allowed to do my job unless that's how I'm dressed? Jay, bluntly and dismissively.
That's it.
Me. Then I need to add this kind of specific detail to this write-up. Yeah, he was putting it on paper, so I added that to my comment. Management determined, explained to me, and I now understand that I am not able to perform my work-related tasks in a professional manner unless I'm wearing office-appropriate attire. Then, for about 3 weeks, slacks and polo shirts. On a Friday night, I get a call at about 11:15 p.m. I'm on call. There's an issue affecting multiple production lines. None of the computers are connecting to the network. Can't print labels, blah blah blah. My plan comes into effect. Full circle ensues. I tell the production supervisor that I can't do anything about it. Really, I just needed to run a script that bounces DHCP on a domain controller, but I digress. Because I'm not wearing office-appropriate attire. He knew what I was referring to, and all of my work clothes were at the dry cleaner and that I will pick them up on my way to the gym Monday morning. That blew up tremendously, as expected, and Jay calls me early Saturday morning, where I, bluntly and dismissively, tell him that this issue is his problem, not mine. He was the one who disciplined me and insisted that I was not able to do my job unless I was wearing office-appropriate attire, and that it is documented that I must be wearing office-appropriate attire in order to do my job, and that this will be happening on Monday morning after I pick up my clothes from the dry cleaner. Me. Your rules, buddy, not mine. Have a nice weekend. Jay.
Then tell me how to fix this.
Me. I'm not even wearing pants right now. Can't do work stuff. Jay angrily hangs up. Monday, I come in prepared for a battle. With HR, Jay, and the plant manager in the same room, I spell out how this is going to work, as best as I can recall. Me. If you don't like this, let me know now. If you folks don't think I can do my job wearing a t-shirt and jeans, after doing my job exceptionally well for 7 years wearing a t-shirt and jeans, then this changes when Jay shows up. I promise you that what I'm wearing is not the problem. Jay is. If you see it otherwise, explain it to me. HR and plant manager. Huh? What? Me. HR, don't play stupid. You saw that write-up, and you filed it accordingly. Plant manager. What? I explained the write-up to plant manager. Plant manager says that's the stupidest thing he's ever heard and ultimately blasts Jay and HR. Plant manager reassures me that this will never happen again. The write-up is garbage, and that if I have any other problems to let him know. He asks me to fix the production line issue. Pop up my laptop screen, log in, run a PowerShell script and say, should be good in a few minutes. About 6 months later, I suspect that Jay was up to some unscrupulous stuff and found all kinds of proof in his email. Sent that to plant manager. Jay was terminated the next day. The building I was in is a separate building, a data center that can only be accessed by about a dozen people around the world. Only the front office has a dress code. Ignoring the fact that no one should show up in ripped jeans or dressed like a jerk, etc. Jeans and a t-shirt were fine. Folks keep asking. Jay was terminated for embezzlement, buying equipment on company POs, then selling the equipment back to contractors at below cost and keeping those funds. Then he was approving the invoices submitted by those contractors and no one was the wiser. I had been talking to one of the contractors who had mentioned that they were surprised at how little they paid for the equipment, and I knew that the company bought that stuff. Huh? So I investigated. Jay had deleted the applicable emails to cover his tracks, but we have a 20-year email retention policy in place, so putting it all together was pretty easy. Am I the jerk for not donating my bone marrow to my birth father? I, 17 male, am adopted. My birth parents weren't able to care for a newborn, and I ended up in foster care because of it. I was adopted by my family when I was 2. I have a very happy life, one I likely wouldn't have with my birth parents. About a month ago, my birth parents got into contact with my family. Long story short, my birth father is sick and needs a bone marrow transplant. They are on a wait list but haven't heard back just yet. I'm the only kid they ever had, and odds are that I am a match. Pretty much, they wanted my parents to get me tested and then donate my bone marrow to him. My parents told me that it's up to me, and after some thought, I said no. I don't know them other than that they gave birth to me. They've had no part of my life whatsoever, and now they suddenly need me? Well, they sent my parents a nasty message saying they can sue to force me to donate my marrow. I do feel a little bad, but I feel like this isn't my problem. Am I the jerk? Hey Reddit. Sorry, right after I posted, I went to the store with my mom. Just wanted to clear up something I read in the comments. I'm a boy, but flattered some of you think I'm pretty enough to be a girl. I have no contact or anything with my birth parents. From what my parents told me, I was put into foster care when I was less than a month old. That is how they got me, and they decided to adopt me, which was finalized when I turned 2. I have 4 siblings, and I have a great life. They told me when I was old enough that I am adopted, but outside of that, I had no idea who my birth parents were or what they even looked like. Someone said I should do it, because what if I need medical information, want to get to know them, or something like that? Yeah, no. I have no desire to get to know these people. None. I have no desire to seek out grandparents, cousins, and uncles. I don't want to know if some form of rare cancer runs in the family, because they are not my family. I haven't spent 17 years of my life with them. Why would I want to get to know them now? Edit. For those of you who keep saying you should reconsider it, how about you donate to him? My parents told me to think about it. I thought about it, and the answer is no. I'm not doing it. That's it. Morning Reddit. It's early. I'm getting ready for school between typing this. Read more comments this morning, and again, let me clear something for y'all. My birth parents didn't lovingly give me up. I was taken. My parents don't know the exact reason because that information was never released to them. They were told, and I quote, "It wasn't a good environment for me. I was taken." Even if they had given me up, doesn't mean I owe them anything. Not like I asked to be born like every kid on the green earth. Y'all can be a bunch of hypocrites. In one breath, you say there are kids in foster care who need a home. Well, I was a foster kid who was given a home by 2 loving parents. Then in the next breath, you're saying, what about your family? I have a family. They've raised me for 17 years. Medical history? Some very helpful people have privately messaged me to let me know that in 2021, I can get all that crap without ever having to speak to those people again. Ever. Amazing how far science has come, right? I'm going to be showing this to some of my friends today because I have to admit, I'm over it. It's not my problem what happens to this man. And again, some people have pointed out in the comments, odds are I wouldn't be a match anyway. And he has been lucky getting a donor off the list, and it will be faster than waiting on me to get tested, only to be told I'm not a match anyway. And again, with those on your hill screaming, well, wouldn't you donate to a stranger? I donate blood mostly because it gets me out of PE class. I like donating blood. If someone receives that blood, then congratulations. I put no more thought into it besides that. Even if they had come to my parents and said, hey, you adopted our son, and well, we need a favor. Sorry to ask, blah blah. My answer still would have been no. I did my own research and found plenty of stories of kids who were used like gold mines for their genetic materials by their parents to save their siblings or a family member, and that is all they were to their families. Someone who had the right match. I don't owe them anything. I don't care if she spent 8 hours in labor with me. They aren't my family. I have a wonderful family who support me right now. Also, my parents are working on finding how the heck they even know where I was because my adoption was a closed one. They had their rights terminated when I was taken. They shouldn't know anything about me. I don't know if they're contacting a lawyer or anything. I know they are pretty upset about all of this. I have to get to school. Later. Company called me average, so I became average. I, 26 male, started my first job after college 3.5 years ago. I was hired with a group of 25 people. I used to run a lot of clubs in college and had this I need to finish my job as best as I possibly can attitude when I first joined. I was good at what I did and put in considerably more work than other people who joined with me. Another huge motivation behind this was that since the initial pay wasn't good enough, I wanted to impress my work and get a really good raise at the end of the year. So throughout the year, I kept working late hours, stayed at the office for 10 plus hours on a regular. The way our work dynamic was, I was the only one under my manager, and we were both supposed to share the work on the projects. And slowly and steadily, my manager started noticing I'm taking up extra stuff, and he started offloading his work onto me too. Now I was essentially doing my own job and half of his job as well, and had reduced the time it took to do those things by at least 40%. I was stressed and overworked, but was getting exceptionally weekly ratings, so I felt it was worth it. How naive I was. Appraisal time came, and I went into the one-on-one with my manager. This guy tells me that while I have one of the best performing ratings in the company, they're not allowed to give freshers a huge raise, and I received the same raise that others who joined with me did by doing the bare minimum. I was upset. I told my manager that since the company has declared me average, that he should expect average performance from now on. He laughed there, thinking I was kidding. I wasn't. Next day onwards, every task that would be done in 2 hours now needs 8. Won't stay in the office for more than the agreed upon 8.5 hours. Won't finish up lunch quickly to get some more work done. Won't do any of your job for you. Oh, the client is asking for this document that I prepared in an hour? Sorry, an average person wouldn't do it in less than 4, so I'm going to keep it with me while I take the next 3 hours to figure out how to update the table of contents. It takes 3 clicks, by the way. Oh, there's something you need to ask for after work hours? Sorry, it'll have to wait until tomorrow. Complaints started coming in quickly about the delays in deliverables. Manager started spending a lot of time frustrated because he wasn't very good to begin with, and now I wasn't taking up his workload. I spent the entire year working 2 hours a day while I spent the rest of the time listening to music, browsing Reddit, and watching him struggle. Left at the end of the year for a job that paid 3 times the salary. Some details of our projects get published online, and last I checked, this guy was running 7 to 8 months behind on some of the projects, and from what I heard from some of my friends in the company, didn't get any raise last year.
Dine and Dash Karen gets what she deserves. My group of friends have been together for quite some time, at least starting from the end of middle school. The majority of us ended up going to the same college, so good for us. Anyway, one of our friends has been acting unreasonably and starting drama for fun. It's been slowly building up for about a year. Now, gossip and rumors we can deal with because we know each other and we can usually pick the truth from the lies easily. At the point of her rumor spreading, we distanced ourselves from her quite a bit. Her latest antics have been much different. For the sake of this story, her name can be D. In our area, cases have been low, so we've started to go out more with the whole gang. Extra precautions aside, things look to be normal. We eat at a semi-formal restaurant, as is our custom. Something about dressing up and treating ourselves is something we try to do as much as we can financially permit. Things seem fine until the bill comes and it's time for each of us to settle up. Dee starts to get shifty and starts tapping at her phone. She stands up quickly and says she needs to go. It's an emergency. She fast walks out of the dining room and out of sight. We try to text and call her, but no answer. We end up all absorbing her part of the bill. A one-time favor for a friend in need, right? The second part of our routine is to go to the host's house, where we drink, watch movies, and have a good time. Kelly was to be the host this time. We're not much for gossip, but Dee's old behavior mixed with her previous antics got us on the topic. All 6 of us shared some stories, and it looks like every one of us had some personal run-in with our friend. The second time we all go out to dinner, everything seems well. Dee ordered a lot of mixed drinks and seemed thoroughly tipsy. Foolishly, we believed she would pay her tab this time. Before the waiter could even bring up how we wanted the bill split, Dee excused herself to the bathroom and did not return. We all have jobs, along with scholarships, so thankfully money isn't our primary worry. However, last time's bill paired with Dee's inflated dinner and alcohol tab would set us collectively back about $300. Reluctantly, we paid. Although we didn't see her, it was assumed that she drove home. We rendezvous to the host's place, very annoyed and in no mood to party. Again, Dee refuses our calls and does not open our messages. We busy ourselves by trying to get in touch with some of Dee's other friends.
Through the mishmash of conversation, it was revealed that Dee was receiving a stipend from her father that she was saving to buy herself a new Tesla. Not only did she have a job, but she was getting free money from her dad. There was no reason for her to not pay her bills. I guess she thought this way she could get her Tesla faster. We had collectively been fed up with her crap. Since all of us felt burned, we decided to plan some revenge. We knew she had the cash, she just didn't feel obliged to hold her weight. At this point, we were all working up to how entitled she could be. Our sense of loyalty and nostalgia had blinded us for way too long. Today was the day. We decided to go to a very nice restaurant today, about twice the prices of what we would normally do. Dee looked so excited, bless her. We all ate, drank, and had a great time. Dee had ordered many drinks and was again drunk. We were careful not to wait too long or else Dee would dash. So just as dessert was over and the prospect of after-dinner coffee was being thrown around, we all declared that we had a surprise for Dee. Next month is her birthday, so we thought it would be reasonable enough time to use it as an excuse for her to close her eyes. Dee did as she was told and was instructed not to open her eyes until we said so, because the gift takes a minute to set up. We all got up, quietly filed out of the restaurant, and left her there with her eyes closed. Just as we were pulling out of the parking space, we all took one car to save time after our escape. Dee took her own car as usual. We saw Dee running out of the doors, searching wildly for us. She caught sight of the car just as we rolled away. Our phones were blowing up like crazy. Tons of vile messages following the calls. I got to thinking, the bill must have totaled around $700-ish for everyone. We would never have picked this place normally, although the food was very good. The rest of the gang headed to my apartment. About 30 minutes later, we each received a message saying we owed her $738.17, along with a photo of the bill. She had the audacity to include her part of the bill in that amount as well, and judging by the receipt, she gave no tip. Classy. I replied with this message, "Guess you'll have to dip into your Tesla fund. Take an Uber home before you lose your scholarship and your friends, boozer. We know you can afford it." To say she went crazy is an understatement. She went coconuts. She tore us a new one on Twitter, blocked us, then unblocked us to rip us some more, then blocked us again. Now Kelly, who has an alternate Snapchat account, is treating us to her near-psychotic rants talking about fake jerks who never did anything for her. I guess that's us. Maybe next time she'll learn to pay for herself like an adult. Karen stole my dog, so I sued her. My dog, Maximo, is a rescue dog. He has a lot of aggression problems. As a result, his vet recommends training him with a muzzle. The muzzle that my dog wears is totally comfortable for him. It doesn't hurt him or anything. So far, we've had very good results. I take my dog to a dog park every Monday along with my 11-year-old daughter. I took my dog to the dog park like I normally do. He was wearing the muzzle. I keep an eye on him, checking for signs of trouble. Suddenly, I hear a girl cry, and my daughter is out of my field of vision, so I get worried. I tie Maximo up in an area specifically designated for that purpose, and I move no more than 15 meters away from him to search for my daughter. I find her. It was not her who was crying, and when I return for Maximo, I see this girl running towards him. She takes him in her arms and runs back to her car. Max is visibly stressed, but because of the muscle, he can't do anything. The park was almost empty, so there was no one around her to stop her, and I couldn't reach her, but I took a picture of her from her license plate. I went to the police station, and there they identified the owner of that car and sent a patrol to look for my dog. A day later, the police returned with the girl and Maximo, who was in a deplorable state, very nervous and anxious. There, the girl explains to me that she took Maximo because she thought I was mistreating him, and that she watches every Monday how he uses a muzzle against his will. Regardless of her reasoning, no matter how noble she is, I decided that I would sue her anyway. The stress I felt, along with the state Maximo returned in, is reason enough to sue her. My sister has another opinion. She says that I'm being a horrible person for suing someone that thought she was doing the right thing, and that the girl took a risk to save a dog that she believed was being mistreated, and that's admirable. Some of my friends agree with her. I still want to sue her, but I would like other perspectives to see if I am in the wrong. No, lady, you don't get more toilet paper than everyone else. So this is a story from the time in which everyone bought up horrendous amounts of toilet paper for no reason during the lockdown. At one point, I had worked at the store I was shopping in, but at this point I was not working there, and it had been over 2 years since I had worked there. So I had to get to the store extremely early and stand in line for 2 hours before they opened to get 1 pack of toilet paper. And the lucky ones of us that actually ran to the toilet paper aisle were the ones that got the big packs, because the store only lets you have 1 pack. It doesn't matter if it was 4 rolls or 16 rolls, you only got 1 pack. So I was fortunate enough to get one of the larger packs of toilet paper. I actually did need toilet paper. It was my mother's regular shopping day, so I actually grabbed 2 packs to put in the cart. I did not live with my parents at this time, so I was walking around with the 2 packs, and they wouldn't take one of them away from you until you got to the checkout, so you could walk around the store with multiple packs in your cart. But it wasn't until you got to the register that they took the rest out. I called my mother to see if she needed toilet paper, because if she did, this was her typical shopping day, I was going to do the rest of my shopping and wait on her, then hand it off to her, because by the time she got there, there wouldn't be any left. She told me that she had enough toilet paper and she didn't need any, so by this time the shelves were pretty bare. All that was left was basically paper towels. I heard an elderly woman on the phone sounding like she was about to cry.
I even got here early, but then everybody ran. When I got to the toilet paper, there wasn't any left. I've not had toilet paper for 2 days. This is the 3rd store I've gone to this week. This is just horrible.
So of course, I, not needing the toilet paper in my cart anymore, and hearing this lady who looks to be about 70 about to cry on the phone because she couldn't run fast enough to get toilet paper, which is absolutely horrible. Elderly people shouldn't have to outrun other people to get toilet paper. I go up to her and ask her if she was looking for any specific brand or anything, and she tells me she doesn't care what brand it is, she just needs toilet paper. So I take the other one out of my cart and I give it to her. She seems so happy, but then seems sad, saying that she doesn't want to take it from someone else. I explained to her about my mother and why I had the 2nd pack, and how people were only allowed to buy 1 pack anyway. She was extremely happy and basically said that I must have been sent from God to bless her and all of that. But here comes the moment you've all been waiting for. After the sweet elderly lady walks off to either shop or go check out, I don't know which, but she was out of the area when this happened. A woman comes walking up to my cart and starts to take the toilet paper out of it. Me. Hey, what the heck do you think you're doing? Karen.
Getting my toilet paper.
Me. That ain't your toilet paper, that's mine. Get your hands out of my cart. Karen.
No, this isn't. You're handing out toilet paper.
Me. No, I'm not.
You just gave some to that lady over there.
I had extra.
Because you work here and you're handing it out. Stop denying me my toilet paper.
Me. Lady, I ain't worked here in 2 years. You can just go buzz off. I start to walk away with my cart and my toilet paper. Karen.
You stupid little jerk.
She comes walking up behind me and tries to rip it out of my cart. I swing my cart from under her and she falls down.
I'm going to have you charged with assault.
Me. Good luck. This place is covered in cameras and I wasn't the one that jumped on your cart. So have fun. I proceeded to go check out and happened to see the elderly lady checking out with her toilet paper and her other groceries. I don't even know whatever happened to that lady, but I'm glad I never saw her again. I hope she never found the toilet paper. I hope she had to use paper towels. How I got our workshop repaired, and revenge on my manager. So I know what people are going to say. If it was dangerous, why not just report it to health and safety? And my answer to that is that I am as thick as mints. Plus, I've seen how they butchered the workshop of another department, putting insane safety measures in place that do little to actually protect people and mostly just get in the way. The safety person is only technically qualified, meaning they're office workers that went on a course about it once. Go figure. So the situation was, I was working in a machining workshop, mill, lathe, surface grinder, etc. And it's old and worn out. Everything needs maintenance, but either management don't give us the time, it needs new parts that management won't buy, or it needs a proper service from a professional that management won't get in. Then someone in health and safety asks about safety checks, which the manager in charge sheepishly mentions there are none. Officially at least. We have the sense to do them anyway. And so weekly safety checks are put in place. More paperwork. Ooh, but I don't mind. Knowing this manager, he expects them done like all other safety checks in the factory. Unless it's going to hurt someone, sign to say it's okay anyway, and let him know so it can be fixed later. That way the machines don't get stopped constantly. But I realized the potential. Want me to do the checks? Sure, I'll do the checks perfectly. Spindle brake on the lathe is worn out? Fail, locked off. Nobody can use it until it's fixed. No emergency stop on the big drill? Fail, locked off. Nobody can use it. Plastic housing for the wiring on the mill is broken? Fail, locked off. Nobody can use it, etc., etc. Safe to say, he wasn't happy. But what can he do? It's all recorded on paper, and machines in the factory are stopping because they need parts making. Then came the big one. For a while, we've noticed machines getting damaged overnight. Night shift. But we weren't sure how. All the machines are on key locks, and we have the only keys. I came back after break one day and find a machine operator turning on a bench grinder to sharpen a knife. Cue some colorful words about what he thinks he's doing, why it's wrong, what I'll do to him if he does it again, and I ask how he turned it on. Turns out, someone from night shift told him the lock is old and worn out, and basically any similar key will work just fine, no matter what the bidding. So I go around to check, and sure enough, my locker key, the kind everyone in the factory has, turns on every machine. Some even worked with a screwdriver or just using the back of another key because there was no lock left inside. Fail, 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 fail. Everything fails. Whole workshop stopped. If this was a cartoon, the manager's ears would be leaking steam by now. He insists that this doesn't count as a fail because reasons. Then that these locks with keys that control power aren't keyed interlocks, and so I don't need to check them before finally just insisting it's okay and I should pass it because he says so. Sure, I said. Just put it in writing that it's you saying it's okay, not me. Sure backed down quick then. A day or so later, new locks turned up and were fitted, and the problem of overnight broken equipment went away. In the end, the manager got an earful from his bosses about production delays and another from health and safety when they found out these issues had been reported for a long time without anything done about them. In all though, he got away pretty clean, besides the bruised ego. And that's how the workshop went from old, crappy, and dangerous to just old and slightly less crappy. Am I the jerk for siding with my stepdaughter's dad against my wife and exposing her lie? I, male 37, have been married to my wife, Regina, for 3 years. I have a 16-year-old stepdaughter named Becky. She's the loveliest and has the most generous heart. Her dad, Regina's ex-husband, Brandon, is a nice dude, and we get along just fine due to the fact that we see each other often, and also because Becky joins us for activities, which is always exciting. However, Regina just hates Brandon and always pushes me to have bigger involvement in Becky's life than him, which is illogical since he's her dad before I came along, but that doesn't mean I'm not doing my best to be a father figure to her. So, Becky's sweet 16th birthday was days ago. Brandon couldn't attend due to work, but he came over and gave Regina the gift he brought for Becky, which was an expensive bracelet, and asked her to hold on to it until Becky's birthday party to give it to her and say it was from her dad. Regina said okay, and he left. I was sitting nearby when they had this conversation. Regina then said she was planning on telling Becky that the bracelet her dad got her was from me. I said no, that's wrong and unfair to Brandon and Becky if she ever finds out that Regina lied about the bracelet being bought by her. She said she won't find out, but I firmly stated if she tried this, I'll shut her down and tell Becky the truth. She gave me an "I dare you" look and went about her day. The party came, and when Becky started opening gifts, Regina handed her the bracelet and told her that she bought it for her. I was shocked, as I didn't think she'd actually go through with her plan. Becky asked about her dad's gift, and I flat out told her he already sent her this bracelet and that her mom lied about buying it when it was from Brandon who bought it. My in-laws and Becky's friends were stunned. Becky asked Regina to confirm, but Regina lashed out at me and denied, till I showed them the receipt that came with the box, and it was under Brandon's name. Regina threw it, but I received it from the trash. Becky started arguing with Regina and left the room, crying, and the party was pretty much over. I literally got yelled at by Regina and her parents, calling me awful for causing drama and accusing Regina of theft and exposing her in front of Becky and her friends. Regina guilted me for not playing along and siding with Brandon against her. She told me to stop advocating for this guy like we were buddies. I said, poor guy did nothing wrong and didn't deserve to be alienated from his daughter. Becky hasn't spoken to Regina ever since and is waiting for her dad to come visit, and Regina isn't talking to me, but me and Becky are good. Am I the jerk? Did I mess up? Time to answer some questions and add more information. 1. Regina says my friendship with Brandon is weird and always seems to be looking for a reason to start an argument between me and him, but he's a good guy. 2. My sister-in-law told me this rivalry Regina has started when Brandon's now wife came into the picture, but most fights are between Regina and Brandon, not his wife. 3. The reason for Regina and Brandon's divorce is, like Regina said, infidelity on Brandon's part. Not sure about this, but it's what I've been told by her and the in-laws. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Regina? Please let us know.
Sounds like Regina needs some milk.
Oh, I'll just hold on to it. Leave it. It's fine. Not sure how many of you folks have dogs, specifically male dogs, but for anyone who doesn't, pro tip, anything upright and stationary can and will be peed on. Fire hydrants? Of course. Signs? Absolutely. Plants? You bet. Innocent bystanders who haven't moved recently. Oops. I swear that's only happened twice. One fine day about 2 years or so ago, my pupper and I were at the dog park doing dog park things. I throw the ball, he chases it down. Sometimes he'll bring it back, sometimes he'll leave it random places. Sometimes he'll bring it to a random stranger in the park and look at them like they're soft until they figure out he wants them to throw the ball. The entire time this is happening, the whole park is getting all the emails replied to, one spritz at a time. This particular time, we had the entire dog park to ourselves for a little while, and these 2 ladies come in with super cute beagle puppies. One woman sensibly didn't bring a bag with her into the park. She had pockets. The other lady had a very big bag, and it looked like it cost about as much as a used car. This was the kind where she'll get scoliosis from carting the thing around, but it's large enough to fit actual Karen appliances. So these 2 ladies are standing there talking to each other and monitoring their puppies, which is good. I've more or less dissolved into a puddle of aw, and my dog makes friends because at that time in his life, he'd still play with other dogs. Then I noticed the woman with the bag has put her bag on the ground, which is the thing you do when you've probably got a car battery crammed in there with all the other stuff ladies need to carry when they're not permitted pockets by the cruel gods of fashion. I noticed this and figure she's new. Once I've recollected myself from puddle form, I wait for an opportune moment and toss out an, "Excuse me, I hate to interrupt, but I just wanted to let you know that having your bag on the ground is a bad idea at the dog park. I've seen others hang it on the chain link fence," and I point at the fence that encloses the dog park. Not like there weren't over 9,000 available hangers for her bag. They both look at me in mild shock. Apparently, they hadn't noticed me gushing all over their cute puppies. Then they caught on to what I was saying, and the sensible lady looks at her friend and rolls her eyes, while the bag lady comes back with, "Oh, I'll just hold on to it," and picks up the bagzilla and slings it back over her shoulder. I shrug and buzz off, which was not a stated request, but was implied. Within 5 minutes, the doom bag is back on the ground, and I meander over because I see my dog go into a target lock mode. The stream is imminent. I attempt to give the woman a heads up and make it as far as, Bag lady looks at me and just snaps,
Leave it. It'll be fine.
I give her a shrug and mosey over to somewhere clear of the blast radius. Not only does my dog have target lock, he's also parked himself uphill from the bag's impact crater. His leg lifts, and it's no spritz going into, not onto, her bag. It's a full stream. Realizing the most likely reaction from bag lady is a designer boot to somewhere, I shout, "Dexter, no!" at max volume and get the desired result. He looks at me and then doesn't escape and evades because he's a jerk like that sometimes. Both ladies look at me, then at the bag, and then at the dog. Sensible lady is fighting back tears while bag lady works herself up into a frenzy. "How dare my filthy animal urinate on her valuable stuff? Don't I have him trained? Blah blah blah." She scruffs her puppy and holds him in her arms while maintaining a constant stream of castigation at me. It was honestly kind of impressive. Keeps shouting at me all the way over to her car, throws the puppy in, hope he's okay, and burns rubber leaving the park. Other lady bursts out laughing once the car is out of line of sight. She wheezes, "At least you tried."
How dare you stand near me?
I work as a self-checkout clerk. It's my job to stand near the registers and make sure people don't steal stuff, and make sure any issues they have with our point-of-sale system get smoothed over. Because of what's going on, I also sanitize these registers. Late last night, I was doing just that when two women came up to the register I was trying to clean. I moved off a bit until I noticed that the receipt wasn't printing after she put in her money and went over to investigate. It said she still had $1.14 left to pay. She asked me why it wasn't printing, and I told her that before moving away. I stayed nearby because I still needed to clean the register.
Are you staying here to make sure I don't steal $1.14?
No, I just wanted to sanitize the register because sometimes people are gross. Since it's what I have to do next, I just want to stick around.
You know we come through self-checkout to avoid people.
I internally rolled my eyes. She paid and she left without her friend. Her friend had grabbed some food from the deli and decided she didn't want it. So I handed it off to another associate to return and went back to monitoring the area. A woman needed help scanning produce because it can be a pain in the butt on our system, stuff like that. I go back to the register I saw her at to get back my cleaner and paper towels and notice that there are still 2 items on the belt that haven't been scanned. Oh, are you going to pay for those in a separate transaction, or do you not want them?
Well, I was going to pay for them in a separate transaction, but since you've been harassing me all night, I don't want them anymore.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, that wasn't my intention. I was just trying to clean.
You've been acting like I was planning on stealing these. I'm going to call and make sure your manager hears about this tomorrow.
She picked up the 2 things that were still on the belt and threw them at me. Not very hard, and they were light, but it surprised me. Ma'am, I'm so sorry. If you want to talk with…
Now you're trying to embarrass me in front of everyone to keep me from telling him what you did.
I'm just trying to understand what I did so that I don't do it again. She grabbed the things she did pay for and left me with the super glue and electrical tape. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my friend's EpiPen? I have a housemate, Jillian, who's 26, who is severely allergic to peanuts. There are 5 of us who rent a house together, and we all agreed to put a label in our food containers to help keep Jillian safe and avoid contamination. I have a mini fridge in my room where I store my drinks so that I don't have to go to the kitchen if I want a drink in the middle of the night. Well, last Friday, my Filipino girlfriend gave me an authentic Filipino dish for lunch at work. It's called kari-kari. It's an oxtail stew with a rich peanut sauce. It's in a glass container, and I saved some so that I could have it for dinner. When I got home, I put it in my mini fridge, but I forgot to eat it that night because we ordered pizza for dinner. Saturday, I went out with my girlfriend and got home at around 9 p.m. When I arrived, Jillian's girlfriend, Trish, confronted me, saying that I almost hurt Jillian. I didn't know what she was talking about. She went on saying how irresponsible of me it was to not label the food in my mini fridge. I asked one of our housemates what the heck happened, and he said Jillian had an allergic reaction to my stew because I didn't put a label on the container. I told them it's inside my personal mini fridge, and how dare they enter my room. Trish said that they were looking for beer when they saw my stew. She and another housemate ate it. Jillian only tasted it, and she had an anaphylactic shock where they had to use her EpiPen to stop the swelling. Trish then demanded that I need to pay for the EpiPen. I told them that is not going to happen. If anything, they should apologize to me for trespassing and stealing my food. They called me a jerk. She and 3 housemates said I nearly cost Jillian her life, and the least I could do is apologize and pay for the EpiPen. Am I the jerk? Edit for more info. Jillian was taken to the hospital. No, I never gave anyone any permission to enter my room. They were drinking that time and were looking for more beer. They ate the dish with some rice that they found on top of the mini fridge. I think Jillian ate some rice that had sauce on it. I didn't get to ask the details of what exactly happened. Edit, update. So I visited Jillian in the hospital today, and she apologized to me for what happened. It was an accident. She said she didn't eat my kari-kari, but took some rice. She didn't realize that some sauce got on the rice bowl, so there was clearly a cross-contamination. It wasn't her who went in my room, it was Trish and another housemate, Ian. I will be charging them for the stolen beer and food. I will definitely buy a lock after this incident. Thank you all for your advice, judgment, and awards. Am I the jerk for refusing to talk to my son and husband until they apologize to my mother-in-law? My mother-in-law, Sandra, who's 68, is a weird woman. She refers to herself as that. She has random outbursts, hyperfixations, tics, and struggles immensely with social cues. She hasn't been diagnosed with anything, so I won't speculate. When I first met my husband's family, I noticed that all of them, except my husband, made fun of Sandra and her quirks. For example, we were having dinner one night, and my mother-in-law couldn't stop talking about flowers. She loves plants and nature and is super knowledgeable about it. My sister-in-law made a comment making fun of her, and everybody at the table laughed about it. Sandra got extremely embarrassed and didn't talk for the rest of the night. This kind of behavior is normal in the family, and I despise it. I get so angry whenever someone makes fun of Sandra because she's just such a kind, lovely woman that I just can't fathom why they do that. I've had a lot of conversations about this with my husband and even fights when he laughs about the jokes. We have a son who's 15 named Alex, and my biggest fear is becoming true. Alex has started to pick up the behavior around him and has been laughing at Sandra. I've talked to him about why laughing at her is bullying, but that behavior is inappropriate, etc. But Alex doesn't seem to care. 2 weeks ago, we went to see Sandra. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law were there along with their families. Sandra looked very happy. While catching up, she randomly started clapping, one of the tics that appears when she's excited. My brother-in-law made a comment poking fun at her, and the whole family laughed, including my husband and Alex. Sandra got teary-eyed and had to excuse herself to the bathroom. I've never been more furious. While on our way home, I chewed my husband and son out and told them to not speak to me until they apologized to Sandra. I told them that I don't want to hear a single word directed to me until they reflect on how their actions are hurtful and disgusting. 2 weeks have passed and I haven't spoken to them, not a single word, because they have made zero attempts of apologizing to Sandra. My husband is telling me that I'm being petty and hurting Alex. He is also mad at me for valuing my relationship with Sandra more than my relationship with them. In my mind, I'm not doing that, but husband says that I am being the jerk. Edit. Just wanted to say that I am stopping the silent treatment towards my son. I now realize that this is manipulative and bad parenting on my behalf. I will be taking Alex to have lunch with me without his dad, so we can have a serious conversation about why his behavior is disappointing. Mini update. Just returned from having lunch with my son and probably having a divorce. Entitled Mom thinks I earn for her useless sons. So I have a very crappy relationship with my family. They only contact me when they need something. Money. I've been through therapy and learned how to say no to people. Honestly, I still struggle, but I also hate when people try to manipulate me. I have several siblings, but 2 of my brothers are apples of my mother's eyes. They are useless. Like, barely earn anything, never have savings. Always needed support from my father, but my father has passed, so my mother took the job of sponsoring my bros. Mind you, these both bros have 3 to 4 kids each. I'm child-free and I earn good. I've worked my butt off to be where I am. Without any support of family, and in fact, due to the mistreatment of my family, I am where I am today. I usually don't mind helping sick bro, sick kids, etc. Every now and then I send 100 to 200 euros and am done for a few months. I recently went on vacation, 3 countries, 15 days, so I did write my mother about my whereabouts. She kept asking me about how much hotel costs and flights, etc. Me being dumb, I just told her rough costs. So yesterday I arrived back and I get a call from her. I was sleeping, so I missed it. I got up to another call early today, and that's when I knew something was coming up. So here's the conversation after general chit-chat. Entitled Mom.
Hey, Ishkabaz. I see you got hair and nails done. How much was it?
Me, confused. Around 150 euros. What's up? You want to color your hair?
No. Actually, your younger bro is going to get operated on. He needs money to pay bills, kids' schools, for food, etc.
Me. Okay, get well soon to him. Entitled Mom.
I want you to send him some money so he can afford things for 2 months.
Me. I'm sorry, what? Why do I have to pay for him?
Because Ishkbaz, you travel around the world. You spend so much on your hair and nails. You should take care of your siblings.
Me. No, I should not pay for them. I earn for myself and am entitled to do whatever with my money.
Shame on you. Your elder brother,
only rich bro,
helped him. You should also participate.
Me. Wow, Mono actually paid for him? Why are you asking me to pay then?
Because it's not enough for their standard of living.
You should pay so he doesn't worry. I have nothing to help. Sorry.
I would never talk to you.
Sure, bye. And I hang up. It sucks, but I'm glad I'll be at peace for a few days. I'm also proud of setting up boundaries. Edit. Oh, and this is the same mother who shamed me for asking my right of inheritance after passing of my father. My bros live in big family house my father built, and my mother has refused any kind of share to us sisters because, where would my sons live? Since we daughters are well off, we don't have any right of father's property. But yet, we have duty to feed these men child and their offspring. Forget that. Thanks everyone for the reply. I'll try to go no contact with her.
Am I the jerk for no longer allowing my sister to work in my daycare after what she did? Hi, I'm a 32-year-old widow. Have been for 3 years. I struggled a lot financially. I didn't get help from my family because they claim they can't, so I decided to start a home daycare. It's been open for 7 months now. My friend was able to get me more clients via Facebook. Thank goodness my business is growing and I've made quite a lot of friends who are moms and also established good reputation since my daycare has been recommended. My sister, 26, is unemployed, didn't find a job yet, and had rent to pay for her and her boyfriend. My parents suggested I let her come work with me at my daycare and accepted since she has experience in the past. I agreed to let her come and earn her living. She got along with the other workers and things were going fine, until she came to me asking about a specific kid that comes to our daycare. He's 4, very well behaved for his age. I was confused after she complained about him. She said she saw his dad come over to pick him up and didn't feel comfortable when she saw him because he's a police officer, and she had an unpleasant incident with the police because of something her boyfriend did that she needed therapy for and struggled a lot from. She wanted me to let the kid go and tell the parent to look for another daycare. He usually arrives at 3 p.m. to pick the kid up. From what I understand, his wife's sick. I refused. I've no good reason to let the kid go. My sister refused to drop it and started being mean to the dad. It was unprofessional of her. I told her she either be respectful or I won't have her work with me anymore. 2 days ago, she sent an email to the dad telling him we won't be welcoming his kid at the daycare anymore. He came to talk to me and I was livid when I saw the email. He asked why and talked about his kid wanting to stay because he's friends with other kids. Talked about not being able to find a daycare closer than ours. I lashed out at my sister and I told her she's no longer able to work at the daycare because of her behavior. We got into an argument and she left after saying I was being unsupportive and inconsiderate. My parents called me saying I shouldn't have kicked out my sister and I'm now causing her to lose her apartment. They argued I have no regard for my sister's trauma and I should have let the kid go and supported her because she's my sister. Everyone shamed me and claimed I had messed up priorities. I felt I was in the wrong for letting her struggle now without a job, but I have no reason to let go of the kid as well. He wears a uniform. My aunt suggested that I ask him to get someone else to come and pick up his kid, or at least I let her leave before 3 p.m. and arrive a bit late in the morning. But others would notice the difference in treatment at the daycare. I understand that there are parents struggling, and I do all I can to help out and be supportive. Yes, she's my younger sister, but treating people like that was unprofessional of her. One thing to clarify, my sister's boyfriend is in no contact with my family due to issues. However, they said they want to support my sister and be in contact with her and support her, although they don't have a relationship with her boyfriend. That's why they keep pressuring me to help and support her. Well, who do you agree with, OP or her sister? Please let us know. When someone goes behind your back and puts your business at risk, you fire them. That sister's a liability waiting to happen.
Thieving manager tries to frame me for their theft. It doesn't go well for them. Cast. We've got the store manager, Mo. We've got thieving assistant manager, Jay. And we've got lead assistant manager, Travis. This story happened around 6 years ago when I worked for a retail company I will call No-Op. Jay was well known to be a thief by the base staff and some of the lower levels of management. Unfortunately, she was a golden girl to Mo and Travis, and we had never had any solid proof. We also didn't get pay docked, etc., unless it was over a certain amount, which it never was, so staff never had a real incentive to try and find proof. One of Jay's favorite things to steal were vouchers for money off products or shopping, because you were just supposed to rip them up and put them in the safe. There was no official way of counting these to return them to the company so she could use them again in a different store and get away with it. This particular day was Halloween, and I was on till number 4, the only till with no cameras on it. Mo came up and paid for her shopping with some gift vouchers she had received at a store manager's meeting because the store was doing really well. I served her and no one else touched my till all day because I was the main person on the tills for this shift. We closed up for the night and Jay took the registers to be cashed up. I went out to the pub with friends and had a good night, not knowing what was coming. The next shift I'm on, Mo calls me into the office and tells me that the vouchers she used were not in the safe, and she knew that it was my till. She wanted me to return the vouchers and would not press charges or put anything on my file if I just returned them immediately. I, of course, did not have them and testified as such, but she didn't believe me. I went looking everywhere, the bin under till number 4 and the bins outside, under the tills and on the floors around the tills, just in case I had dropped them or put them somewhere dumb while trying to sort out cash, etc. Roughly an hour later, Jay comes in, hears what's going on, and offers to look as well. She finds them in 30 seconds flat, somewhere I had already looked. I essentially hissed out, "What a coincidence that as soon as Jay looks, there she finds it immediately. How coincidental." Seething with fury, as I knew she was now framing me for her own theft. She could have found them in the office and made it a simple mistake, but no, she made me the fall guy for her own idiocy. I tried to plead my case to Mo and Travis, stating that I wouldn't be dumb enough to steal vouchers that I knew were Mo's because I was the one who served her. One of the other team leaders, Paul, knew fine and well it was Jay and tried to tell Mo and Travis that I was being set up. But she was the golden girl and could do no wrong, while my name was mud as far as they were concerned. Heck, they thought Jay had caught me in the act. This meant war. Over the next few months, I got really friendly with Jay, flirting outrageously with her and basically pretending like I really respected her and that we were good buddies. It took me a while to work my way into her trust, but once I was there, I knew I could catch her stealing and prove it. We wasted off a load of Christmas chocolate products that hadn't sold, and I put them in a bag to be put in the bin. Jay said we should take them home, against company policy, and seen as stealing, because they were just going to waste otherwise. We were stood underneath the camera just outside of its range, so I said, "I don't want any, but if you want them, you can have them," and put them on a trolley just inside of the camera's range. I had studied the camera's angles in great detail, preparing for a moment exactly like this. I saw her look at the camera, down at the trolley, and back at the camera before walking off to go get her stuff. I warned my colleagues not to take any of the chocolate, even if offered, and had an evil grin on my face, which my colleagues commented on. When Jay came down, she nonchalantly picked up the bag as if it was her shopping, offered chocolate to everyone, and walked out the door with it. Gotcha. The next morning, I arrived for my shift and put on the most somber face possible as I approached Travis. "You should check the cameras on the back door at approximately 22:21. I think you'll find what you see very interesting." He asked me to explain further, and I looked over towards where Jay was, not even 5 meters away, and looked back. "I can't go into detail right now, but I would strongly suggest you go and look at the cameras for that time now." Travis begrudgingly walked off to do just that, and within 10 minutes, Jay was called into the office and her bag was searched. Within the hour, she was suspended pending investigation, and within the week, she was fired and barred from the store. I got a full apology from the managers who didn't believe me, who explained they genuinely believed it was me and had no idea Jay could have possibly been a thief. Their jaws hit the floor after I explained that every member of staff knew she was a thief, but that we didn't feel like we could do anything about it. After going around asking people if this was true, I got another apology. 6 months later, I was offered training to become a team leader myself. I took it, but ended up quitting for a white-collar role in a different company before I finished my training. How I ended up knocking down a Karen and her whole family at Walmart. This happened in 2014, when I lived in a larger city with 500,000 people. At the time, I, 27 male, worked offshore and was currently on land, and it was a weekday. It meant I had nothing to do and no one near me was available. So I decided to go to Walmart and buy some new nuggets I've seen there last time I've been there for lunch. Since I decided on a whim, I didn't notice that at the moment I was wearing black jeans, black shoes, and a blue polo shirt because I had prior commitments in a government institution. Since I only wanted a single product and I live nearby, I didn't bother with a cart and headed straight to the aisle of the frozen goods while listening to some music on my cell phone with my earphones on. While I was checking the expiration dates, I noticed someone clearing her throat repeatedly near me. Since that had nothing to do with me, I ignore it. This didn't go well with her, and she started calling to me. I spared her a look. A 40-something woman with clothes that for sure didn't fit well on her, evidenced by her exposed belly, that was trying to wear what some rebel teenagers were wearing at the time. It was ridiculous, and I was sure I didn't know her, so I went back to check the nuggets. This made her angry, and she pulled my shoulder and started screaming at me, to the point I could hear her, and I stopped the music. Some of the dialogue tone is lost in the translation, but it's Karen. It's not hard to imagine. Karen.
How dare you ignore me like that? I want you to find me the things on my list.
Shoves her list on my chest. I must add that patience was a recently acquired virtue due to necessity. I suffer from chronic headaches 24/7 that get stronger as I get more agitated. So while I was clearly unhappy, I swallowed my anger and answered politely while putting her list on her card. Me. Ma'am, you made a mistake. I don't work.
Don't talk back to me. What kind of an attitude is that? I'll report you to your manager.
Me. No, listen, you're mistaking me for—
Stop talking back to me.
She's screaming now. Me. Okay. I ignored her, took the 2 boxes I came for, and was leaving.
Where do you think you're going? Stop right now.
She tries to get in my way and grab me, but I just spun past her and kept going. Although I'm 1.87 meters tall and was 85 kilograms at the time, I was quite agile and easily left her behind since she stumbled on her cart and fell. I didn't trip her, she fell by herself. I thought it was the end of it. Boy, was I wrong. A wild teenager appeared. Boy.
What are you doing to my mom?
He came, all ready to throw a punch. I must add that while it's not my job, in the past I worked on weekends as assistant self-defense instructor for the military police. The instructor was my roommate at that time, and he knew I could fight. Grew up in a really bad neighborhood, so I was there to spar with the officers and be the assailant they train against. The boy, around 15, didn't stand a chance. I took him down in the direction of the Karen. They didn't collide, but she grabbed him, lifted him, and hid behind him while screaming. At this point, I knew that security would soon come, and going away was no longer an option with all the screaming and fighting. I could see the guy in the rotisserie calling security not far away from there. I sighed and put the nuggets in the freezer near me while I waited for security. At this point, I wasn't listening to the 2 of them screaming anymore because my headache started to flare. Well, her husband appeared too. His wife and son were pointing at me. He ran and tried to tackle me against the freezer, but now I had my 2 hands free. I grabbed him and used his momentum to take him down. And then their daughter showed up. She was probably around 19, and she was just staring at me. So I stared back and asked her, "Do you want to go too?" She trembled for a moment and just sat on the floor with her dad. Smart move. Security comes, 2 guys with the manager following right behind. The whole family started screaming and pointing at me. Karen.
Your employee assaulted my whole family. I'll sue this place and have you all fired.
And other silly remarks. The manager looks aghast with the idea of an employee assaulting a customer when he finally checks on me and gets confused. "You mean this person here?" Furious nods and confirmations. Manager. "He doesn't work here. All employees wear a uniform with ID and our logo on the back. Not even a supplier either. He's the customer." For a moment, the Karen pales, but she sticks to her story and kept screaming and complaining in a loud cacophony that I could only hear about police, pressing charges, suing you all, blah blah blah. I turn to one of the security guys and say, "Me, please take me away from them and call the police. Also, go and ask someone to check the security cameras." He told the manager he was taking me away, and we went to the security room, where I told him exactly what happened. Around 15 minutes later, an officer came up with a flustered manager, and I repeat the story for them to hear, and they check the security feed. A second officer comes later saying that he already got the family statements and they want to press charges when he recognizes me. Let's call him Victor. Victor had participated in our self-defense course for my roommate in the previous year. He and I sparred several times. He didn't remember my name, but to be fair, I didn't remember his either. After explaining where he knew me from, everything was clear for the officers. Victor. This was just self-defense. If he were trying to hurt them, they wouldn't be standing now. Officer 1. It checks with the feed. OP, do you want to press charges? Me. Yes, but just against the parents. I leave the room with Victor, the other officer, the manager, and one guy from security. They were flabbergasted when they got cuffed and taken to the police car instead of me. I ended up losing my whole afternoon on it, but hey, the manager gave me those 2 boxes of nuggets I came to buy for free. The husband got condemned for 3 months, only 1 in jail, and she got out just 1 day after processing, and they sent her back. Am I the jerk for refusing to make an exception for my brother's son to attend my child-free wedding? Hi, I, female 33, am getting married come October to my fiance Derek. Wedding planning went okay, but as soon as we started sending out invitations, the problems began coming our way. Thing is, Derek and I decided the wedding would be child-free. It wasn't out of the blue, and this possibility was there. I have a 42-year-old brother, Paul, who's married, but he and his wife really struggled to have a baby. They finally were blessed with a son that everyone calls a miracle and a rainbow baby. My nephew is 4 years old now, and everyone salutes him and treats him like a king, and also they turn a blind eye to any misbehaviors which he has, which has caused him to become loud, destructive, and out of control, and punishless. When Paul received the invitation and found out that kids weren't included, he and my mom lost it and decided on an urgent meeting with me and Derek. Paul said,
My son is an exception, right?
I said no, and this rule is to be followed by everyone. He argued that I was making a mistake by excluding my nephew. He and mom went on about how he's a miracle since he's their rainbow gravy / grandbaby. Then Paul said he had no problem with my wedding being child-free, but expects me to make an exception for his son. He explicitly said,
You can have your child-free wedding, but you're gonna have to make an exception for my son, and you know why.
Derek apologized and said we won't since our friends and my in-laws had kids too, but now have to leave them home and arrange for babysitters, and advised him to do the same. Paul was offended and said if his son isn't invited, then he won't come, and gave us an ultimatum to drop out if we don't edit his invitation. That caused my family to freak out because Paul is the only and oldest sibling I have, and they said his presence at the wedding is a must. I had an argument with mom and dad who said the fact I'm choosing this to be my hill to die on and treating Paul and my nephew like that was appalling. They emphasized how my nephew is special and I should be ashamed to exclude him even when the wedding is child-free. My parents said if Paul won't come, they won't come either, which devastated me a lot and caused me to break down. Derek said they were the ones being unreasonable and disrespectful of our wedding, and we should wait, maybe they'll come around eventually, but they've doubled down. This morning, my aunt and uncle dropped out as well as my other uncle last week. Paul told everyone and they're supporting him and they won't come unless I make an exception for my nephew, but that will upset my guests and they'll call me a hypocrite. My family is divided, saying I'm ruining my own wedding, basically saying this is all on me. ETA, because I see this question asked a lot. My family have normalized this behavior from Paul and also from his wife. Whenever I point out how unacceptable it is to expect everyone to cater to my nephew and his parents, Paul would chime in with,
She's jealous,
because he and his wife have a kid while I can't / don't. I was married before meeting Derek and divorced my ex-husband for my inability to have kids, but that's another story.
Honestly, your wedding's probably going to be much better off without any of them there in the first place. They sound like a bunch of buffoons.
I'm tired of all these price-sensitive babies. I had a phone call at 12:30 a.m. asking about a rate for tonight. I told him it was $129.99 plus taxes. He told me to slow down because he's French. Actually, he was from Quebec and has a hard time speaking English, so to give him just the numbers, I said $130 plus tax. He said okay, then hung up. I ran audit, then he came to our door at about 1 a.m. I asked on the intercom if he had a room, and he answered with an accent that he wanted one. I realized this was my French guest, so I let him in. He came to the desk. I asked for a piece of ID and credit card. All he did was stare at me with bug eyes and hold his phone up. I said, okay, yes, that is our hotel. He continued to stare and hold his phone and stare with bug eyes and not say anything. I asked, okay, are you going to book online? You can do that. Just keep in mind that would be a 3 p.m. check-in. Guess what? All he did was stare at me. Then I realized he did not understand English all that well, so I pointed at our sign that says 3 p.m. check-in. He asked, is that checkout? I know, he finally spoke. I replied, no,
That is why it says check-in time. If you book online, it will be for 3 p.m. My rate is $130 and I require a credit card and ID. He goes on a rant. Why are you ripping me off? This rate is cheaper. You are talking to me like a kid. Why do you have to point? Saying all this over and over, and I tried to explain that I did not know if he understood, but he can book online. But that would be for check-in the next day. After saying I'm ripping him off a third time, I said to him that that's fine, and he's welcome to go to another hotel and I will not be checking him in. He starts to argue and I said, no, you are not welcome here and you are to leave now. And I pointed at the door, then picked up the phone and started to call non-emergency. He started to leave, then turns to me and says that he checked into one hotel yesterday. So I told him, good, you can go there then, unless you were kicked out from there as well. Then I went on and did my floor checks. I checked my cameras and my lot through the doors to ensure there are no issues. At 1 a.m., I see him in my lot staring at me and not moving. I pick up the phone and pretend to call non-emergency and he walks away. I call neighboring hotels to warn them of the guy to say he's nuts. I have a good working rapport with the other night auditors. Well, who comes back at 2 a.m. and he pauses when the doors won't open. I recognize him and said, no, you are not coming in and you are not welcome here. He tries to pry open the door, but to no avail. He then says he wants a room. I laugh and tell him to move along. He goes away, for now. 2:30 a.m. I get a couple phone calls and I know it's him. I can hear the accent. Apparently, he's hooked up with my wife. I don't hear or see anything. Then at 4 a.m. when I was going to set up my breakfast bar to help the breakfast bar attendant that had cancer when I got a phone call, yup, exactly, it's him. Asking for a room, then he starts to lose it again. I hang up. He calls right back, starts to lose it again, so I hang up. He calls 4 more times, so I just immediately put it on hold. He can listen to bad elevator music because I'm not going to deal with his childness anymore. I'm getting tired of all these overly entitled people that think it's okay to treat staff poorly. If he used the words to say, I can get this rate for $115 online, can you match it? I would have probably matched it. But to glare at me and assume I'm ripping him off and to just have a poor attitude, you can buzz off. And this childish behavior is becoming more and more like the norm. Just tired of it.
That boy creeping hard though, bruh. Better do it like Motel 6 and leave the lights on.
Am I the jerk for canceling my son's birthday because of the gift he brought his stepbrother? I have 2 sons, Matt, who's 32, and Benjamin, who's 17. Matt is my stepson, my wife's biological son, and Benjamin is my biological son. He and Matt are not too close due to their age gap and because they don't live in the same house, but they're cordial to each other. Matt is married, and he and his wife have infertility issues that they've been struggling with for years. Benjamin is known for his sense of humor, but I don't think he's funny. He's focused on making comments about teasing Matt and his wife, such as, I don't know what it's like to have a niece or nephew, and probably never will. Or, the age gap between me and you makes people assume I'm your son. It's hurtful for Matt, so I told Benjamin to tune it down, but to no avail. Last week, we celebrated Matt's birthday at my house. Matt is like a happy kid when it comes to presents. He liked all of the gifts we got him, except Benjamin. Benjamin brought a gift and handed it to Matt. Matt said, thanks, I really appreciate the effort. Benjamin said he could open it, and Matt quickly unwrapped the gift and revealed a red t-shirt with the words, Best Dad Ever on it. He and his wife looked at each other. I felt terrible. I kept shaking my head as Benjamin laughed, telling him to try it on so everyone can see how it looks on him. Matt and his wife were upset. My family and wife were silent. I got into an argument with Benjamin as Matt and his wife got ready to leave. Benjamin acted dumb when I asked what he was thinking pulling this stunt and offending Matt like that. He said there's literally thousands of people wearing t-shirts that say a lot of stuff, and that in no way means that they were trying to insult the person wearing them, and it's not like every t-shirt people wear has to be accurate with their life. I replied that no matter how he tried to spin it, giving Matt a Best Dad Ever t-shirt knowing he's struggling to become a dad was tacky at best and cruel at worst. I then said because of what he did, I'm canceling the dinner reservation for his 18th birthday in 2 months' time, and he lost it, saying he was just teasing Matt and it wasn't a big deal. He tried to negotiate, but I shut it down.
He called his uncle and aunt, who treat him as if he was their son, and made excuses for him. I had an argument with his uncle after he said I shouldn't cancel Benjamin's birthday dinner over a teasing gift and that it wasn't his fault some people are hypersensitive and can't take a joke. I refused to discuss it after more family members asked. I let it go and told them they were free to host his birthday instead. Am I the jerk?
That boy sounds cruel. At least he's turning 18 soon, and you can get rid of him, hopefully.
Am I the jerk for feeding my nephews vegan food for a week? I, 30 male, have been on a plant-based diet for 10 years for health reasons. I take supplements and have regular checkups with my doctor to monitor my health. So far, I haven't had any problems with my diet. A week and a half ago, my sister, 32, asked me if I could do her a favor of taking care of my nephews, who are 13 male and 15 female, for a week, since she and her husband were going on vacation. Honestly, I was kind of wary to do it since my sister has a history of being very specific with how other people take care of her kids, but I still agreed. She knows about my diet, so I sent her this message. Do you want my nephews to eat meat? If so, could you give me the money so I can go buy what I need so I can cook for them? But I didn't get a reply, so I assumed it was okay if the kids ate the same way I did. They left them with me and we had a really good week. In my personal opinion, my nephews ate healthy and got all of their nutrients, except for the absence of protein, but the kids had plenty of energy and said they loved my cooking, so I don't think they had a problem with my diet. Edit. I didn't feed them animal protein, but I did include plant, vegetable protein with every meal. Tofu, rice, seeds, beans, etc. My nephews also really enjoyed what I cooked, so there was no objection from their part. I even made plans with my niece to teach her how to cook certain dishes that she really liked. Today, my sister and her husband came to pick up the kids. My sister asked them what they ate, and my niece said that she ate the same as me. My sister was angry with a capital A. She yelled at me that I mistreated them, that I have no right to push my lifestyle on them, that she should never have left them with me, etc. When I asked her why she didn't respond to my message asking her if she wanted them to eat meat, she replied that it was my obligation to pay for everything they wanted to eat, and that it was implicit that her family eats meat, so she didn't think it was necessary to reply. In the end, my sister told me that she will never trust me again, and she will tell the whole family how untrustworthy I am. Am I really such a jerk?
Am I the jerk for not kicking out my nephew to let my sister move in? I, 35 male, own my house. The layout of the house is important. The basement is a mother-in-law's suite, a medium bedroom, a living area, and a small kitchenette, along with its own full bathroom. It has its own entrance. The first floor is the kitchen, dining room, and a great room, powder room, and a mud room connecting to the garage. The upstairs is the master bedroom with a master bath and massive walk-in closet. There are 2 more bedrooms along with a bathroom and a laundry area. One of the bedrooms upstairs I have turned into my office. I'm currently working from home full-time. In April, my nephew Alec, male 20, came home from college because of current events. Alec is the oldest of 6 kids, and my sister, female 37, has a bad habit of making him take care of all of his younger siblings. He reached out to me, and I let him move into the mother-in-law suite. He's been living with me since then, and we have had no issues. He does not pay rent, nor do I want him to. A couple of weeks ago, my youngest sister, 29 female, came over. She and her husband are having financial problems since her husband lost his job. She has 2 kids, one who's 6 and one who's 4. She asked if they could move in with me for a while. I told her that I didn't think it would work because I only have 1 empty bedroom, and I don't think that 4 people would fit very well. She said that she figured she and her family would move into the mother-in-law suite in the basement. I told her no, that was my nephew's area. Well, she started throwing a fit about that, about how she needed room and he didn't. I didn't budge. I knew what was coming next, so I spoke with Alec, telling him what his aunt was asking and telling him it was his decision whether or not to give up his space. Sure enough, she went to talk to him and he told her he didn't want to move upstairs. She started ranting about what an entitled jerk he was and more. I should say that my youngest sister, let's call her Anne, has always been jealous of Alec. His mom was just 17 when she had him, so of course she was still living at home. Anne was the baby of the family until he was born. She was jealous of him since the day he was born. After she calmed down, she said fine, they would take my bedroom, using the walk-in closet as a bedroom for the kids. I said no to that, and also to giving up my office. Well, she started ranting about how I never help her and basically just yelled at me.
I told her that I was not throwing Alec out of what we both think of his space for her, and stormed out and started complaining to our family. My oldest sister, Alec's mom, thinks that Alec should move back with her and Anne should get the mother-in-law suite. My mom agrees with her. I told them all that they don't get to vote on what happens with my house. Now they're all saying that Alec and I are both jerks for not helping Anne. I think they're ridiculous, but I thought I would post here for outside opinions. Am I the jerk?
Well, who do you agree with? OP or his sister? Please let us know. Her entitlement gives mine a run for its money. Crazy Karen at Chipotle thinks I was stealing food.
This happened just yesterday, and while it was a little shocking, it now just makes me laugh. I work for Uber, and you soon learn quickly the best hotspots for driving around to get plenty of Uber Eats deliveries, which I also do. One place is where a Panera, Starbucks, Chipotle, and a few other places that are just a measure above fast food are, and I get a ton of orders from these places. Since Uber Eats, Grubhub, and others have gotten more popular, they have a shelf inside that has these orders, and you just go in, take the order that's yours, and leave. It really helps to speed up the process of your deliveries so you can make more money. Anyway, Chipotle is the most popular, so I stick close to that restaurant, as I've come to know a few of the employees there too, as once every few weeks I'll eat there before going home. This was during my usual route, and I get my third order for Chipotle, so I park. You can go through the drive-thru, but there are usually lines, and it's just faster to go inside, and this applies to any place really, drive-thru or not. There are a lot of orders on the shelf, so I'm scanning them to find the name and number that matches my order. I come across it as I'm grabbing the bag, and a loud voice stopped me momentarily.
Karen, what do you think you're doing? I've seen you once already. Are you stealing more food?
Me. I looked at her confused. I didn't recognize her, but it's possible she had seen me in here earlier. And like I said before, you just take your food and go. There's no need to tell anyone or anything. I'm sorry ma'am, but I'm not stealing food. I work for Uber Eats, and I'm delivering these food orders, I said, motioning to my shirt. I bought one that says Uber Eats on it to look more professional.
Karen, you're nothing but a liar and a thief, and I know one when I see one.
She was screeching at me and actually blocked my path. Me. Listen, lady, if I was actually stealing food from this place, do you honestly think I would come back not 10 minutes later to steal more? I'm just doing my job, honest.
Don't sass me, young lady. And if you got away with it once already, of course you would just do it again. And it's about time somebody stopped you,
she said, putting her hands on her hips, all puffed up and high and mighty.
You need to learn your lesson, so I'm calling the cops,
she declared, pulling out her phone. Me. I just rolled my eyes at her. I don't have time for this. I have clients waiting for their food, and neither one of us care about Karen encounters. She tries to block me again, but I just bypassed her completely as she wasn't able to cover all the exit doors. This crazy lady actually followed me into the parking lot, screaming how she was going to call Uber and get me fired, and she would be reporting my license plate to the cops, and I would be arrested before the day was through. I just smiled at her. Buzz off, lady. Call Uber all you want, and call the cops too. But since you have no proof, the cops can't do anything, and you are not my client either, so Uber can't do anything either, and won't. Karen.
You can't speak to me like that,
she yelled. Me. Yes, I can. As far as we're concerned, I'm just another person. I don't work for Chipotle, and I certainly don't work for you, so I can speak to you any way I please. That's the beauty of being self-employed, so I'll say it again just for fun. Buzz off. I got into my car and made sure to lock the doors, and this crazy lady actually stood behind my car, which prevented me from pulling out. She was on the phone, and I assumed she was calling the cops, so I just blared the horn on my car, which looked like it scared the heck out of her too. She finally moved, and I pulled out and made my delivery just fine. I've only been working for Uber for a month now, and I was assuming my first crazy would have been from a passenger and not just some random restaurant patron. I do love working for Uber though. I love the fact that I can tell people off when they're being entitled and generally nasty to me without any real concern for losing my job or getting written up or anything. Self-employment is the best. I told my in-laws exactly where my husband was at when I was in labor. I gave birth to my son 10 weeks ago. I went through exhausting periods while I was nearing my due date. I was experiencing discomfort and wanted my husband by my side when I go into labor, but he'd go out every night to hang out at his friend's place and watch football games. I suggested that he play/watch football games at home just in case, but he was having none of it and said he had to attend game night at his brother and friend's place along with his buddies. He said they had certain, how can I describe it, rituals when watching a game, and he can't enjoy doing it at home or anywhere else. The night of our son's birth, my water broke while my husband was at his buddy's place watching a game. I called him and told him to get home and take me to the hospital. He said he was coming, but he didn't. I ended up calling my sister. She lives nearby, and she took me to the hospital. My husband showed up 2 hours later after he kept calling, asking if I was still in labor and that he was almost done watching the game. He was able to make it on time for our son's birth, but I was furious with him, mad and disappointed. He apologized profoundly and has been working on regaining my trust and respect for him after what he's done. He's otherwise very supportive and involved in our son's care. Last night, I was at my in-laws' house for dinner, and we were talking about my son's birth date. My husband suddenly started recalling what happened that night and basically started lying about driving me to the hospital, waiting and feeling stressed out, and standing on his feet for so long without food or even water. I was confused, and I said, "No, none of this is true. None of this happened. In fact, he was watching a football game when I went into labor, and I wanted him to drive me to the hospital, but he didn't show up until 2 hours later." My mother-in-law, who takes no crap from anybody and whom everybody fears, lost it on him, yelling, asking him if that was true, and he kept quiet. She started losing it on him left and right, telling him to sit down and shut up when he stood up to argue, then told him to stand up when he was sitting arguing. Everyone was laughing at how she basically treated him as if he was a boy in trouble. She kept saying, "Shame, shame, shame on you. This is not how I raised my kids to treat their wives. Jordan, you are a disgrace, and I'm disappointed because of what I heard about you." He just took every bit of it and didn't say anything until we got home, when he went nuts, saying I made him look neglectful, a bad husband and father by telling the family about where he was, and said I shouldn't have said anything. But I argued it wasn't okay for him to lie and play hero in front of his parents. He said I just caused a rift between him and his family and asked if I was happy now. Am I the jerk? Should I not have said anything? Edit to say that he's done similar things in the past, since he's a major enthusiast of football and hockey, but I didn't expect it to come to that. Also, this is not our first baby together. We have a 4-year-old son. I feel sick to my stomach right now. What kind of father would rather watch a football game than be at the hospital when his son is about to be born? It's okay, Karen. Here, let's read our next story. I need a smoothie. You only want me working part-time in case there isn't too much work next year? Sure. I must confess, I have profound respect for people who do not take crap from their employers. You are my heroes, and so I hope my story can help someone else. Okay, so first some necessary background info. I live in a small country and I'm an engineer in a very niche field. Where I live, there are about 15 to 18 people in my field in the whole country. Also, unions are a good thing here, and most companies are fine with unions. The employee benefits from this, but so does the employer, since the rules of the game are very clear. Clear for most people, as my employer was about to find out. My story goes like this, and it took place late 2019 until late 2020. My team consisted of 3 people, me included, and one on our team, our mentor, was ready to retire 2 years prior to this happening, but he stayed on because, codependence issues, I guess. We had 10 to 12 years experience each. We were just younger and more inexperienced than our mentor, who has 40 plus years experience. I really envisioned us taking over the team soonish. Company is a large actor where I live, but things had not been going too great for the shareholders for some 6 months prior to all of this happening. Knowing this, I decide I'll not ask for a raise in my annual performance review to show I'm a team player and explicitly state this is to my boss's boss, Mr. V, is all fine and well. For 3 months. Then the bomb drops. One fine autumn day in 2019, I was called to a meeting with my boss, Mrs. G. Mrs. G told me that they didn't expect there to be enough work to go around for my team next year. Lockdown had not struck yet, so that was not the reason. So they wanted to cut me down to a part-time job, working only 80%. That would be about 4 days a week, starting 3 months hence. I immediately asked if this is also the case for my other coworker and if our mentor was going to retire. Well, yes, but no. My coworker would also be offered 80%. Our mentor was going to be working 60%. And I'm like, what? He really wants to retire, Well, he is not yet, says Mrs. G, because of reasons and stuff. Okay, so I signed the new contract, but feel bad about it since I was really trying to be a team player and did not feel my employer was taking responsibility for us employees, but only thinking of the shareholders. I also get the feeling that they do not see me or my coworker taking over the team anytime soon, despite us not being novices in the field. I immediately start planning for the future. After this happens, I start asking around if other employees are also facing part-time employment due to no projects in 2020. As one does, you want to know if others are doing right. Nobody else is getting part-timed, and everybody else is appalled. Just us three. We are singled out for some reason. Some of our colleagues even say that they've had stints of no work for months without any action taken in this regard. There is now general displeasure in my team towards our employer. Since our mentor just wanted to retire and let us do the job, there would not have been any reason to have us younger engineers working part-time, really. But no, because of reasons and stuff. Okay, so what to do? I have a family and 2 kids, mortgages and a lot, and this will be a blow to the family income. So I start planning to do some work on the side. Since I am an engineer, I can do consulting, right? My employment contract says no. But if my employer cannot or will not offer me a full-time job, the union contract says I can do what I want with the rest of my time, and my employer cannot interfere. I also have the right to refuse more work from my employer because I may have other obligations. Me 1, employer 0. I open up my own company, buy a domain, make a web page, start calling, writing, and letting people know I am available for consulting. Of course, I checked with the union lawyers beforehand if this was okay, which it was, totally fine. They told me that since my employer laid me off and rehired me part-time, I could do what I wanted the rest of my time. This would not have been the case if I had requested part-time employment. Great. I go to work for myself then. Me 2, employer 0. Almost immediately after our new contracts take effect, my employer starts noticing there's more than enough work to go around and asks me to work more hours. No, I say. Unfortunately, I have other obligations. I really didn't. I was just making a stand and enforcing them to recognize their own mistake. Time passes. My savings account drains in about 3 months' time, but we managed to cut down on our expenses, so it's not rough seas, but still not smooth sailing by far. Income is a bit on the low side, although I managed to get some consulting done in my own time. I switch from sourdough bread to stale, boring white bread. Go from good beer to Bud Light to no beer. What you have to do, you have to do. No more fine roasted coffee from the small shop on the corner. Only what sludge I can get at the supermarket and brew at home. Ugh. But this is temporary, I tell myself. And then it happens. I get a big job and start moonlighting to get it done, working evenings and weekends. And this is when crap hit the fan because word got out. I got an angry phone call from Mrs. G's boss, Mr. V, and we have a heated conversation over what I can and cannot do. The conversation was something like this, in short terms. Mr. V: think of how this reflects on our company. Me: that is not my concern here, Mr. V. I have bills to pay and mouths to feed. Mr. V: this is not what we have had in mind. Me: hey, you laid me off, man. You should know the rules of the game. You cannot dictate what I do in my spare time. Perhaps you should have thought it through when you reduced my hours. You think I was happy to lose income and would not try to remedy my financial situation? You can work more hours for us then. I have other obligations now. Can't let down my customers. Mr. V, very angry now. You should consider your next steps carefully, young man. Me: Mr. V, I shall do that. Thanks for your call. You pompous jerk, I silently added. What then followed was phone call from me to my union explaining the situation. Later that week, my employer got a phone call from the union lawyers who spoke to Mr. V in the HR department, telling them what they can and cannot do. And I just kept working for myself. Mr. V is now very unhappy. Stops greeting me when we pass each other in the hallway. Me 3, employer 0. 2 months later, I hand in my resignation. 3 months after that, I'm gone. And to rub salt in the wounds, as they say here, is that a general expression? I don't know. Please do tell me if there's another expression in English for something to increase an already painful experience. Something remarkable happens. My coworker, not our mentor mind you, asks if I would want to partner up and start a new company together. Yes, I say, for it was a great idea. Coworker hands in resignation a month after I handed mine in, and we start working on our own company full time. People that depend on our services are very happy about us entering the market as independent consultants. Business takes off. Me/us 4. Employer 0. The aftermath. My former employer has had an opening for our job since August of 2020. Our mentor told me last month he has finally put down his foot and is retiring at the end of the year as he's turning 70 soon. They will thus have gone from 3 people in a very niche field to 0 in less than 2 years because of bad managerial decisions. It did not come as a surprise to me that there were no other available in the market. Since it is a niche field, I know almost every person personally, so I could have told them that everybody seemed happy with their current employer. Being a manager must suck. Oh wait, that's me now. BR from the manager. My sister is my hero. I was with my sister at a large store several years ago. I was thinking it was Walmart, but it may have been Target. First off, my sister is a sweetheart, one of the most loving people you'll ever meet. She loves everyone. If you're a good person and do good things, she will appreciate you. She doesn't yell or raise her voice ever. However, she also doesn't like or appreciate people mistreating others or injustices. She always speaks out. We were in line. It was a very busy night and we were several people back. In true sister fashion, she remembered things after we were in line and sent me to go get them. I ran to go get them, and upon my return, I heard the tail end of a heated discussion, which led to everyone clapping and my sister standing at the front of the line angrily glaring at this one guy 3 people back. If I remember correctly, we were 5 people back, so 2 people behind him. Apparently, while I was gone, the cashier had to price check something and was taking a bit longer. The cashier was a very sweet young man who was disabled. I don't think it was the cashier's fault things were slow. It was a busy spurt, meaning the store wasn't that busy, but quite a few people hit the registers all at the same time. And according to my sister, it was a series of events that caused things to slow down on our register. Anyway, the man 3 customers back was super upset that things were taking slow and decided his time was more important than being a decent human being. He angrily muttered things under his breath that my sister refused to repeat. Then after the second price check, he started yelling, "Come on, you've got to be kidding me. Can we get a real employee to check us out? Get this guy out of here." According to the woman in front of him, that was when my sister had enough. She left our cart in line and marched over to the employee and stood next to him behind the conveyor belt. She looked at the employee and told him, "You're perfect, and don't let mean people try to tell you otherwise." Then she glared at the man, raising her voice to be heard since he was still yelling, and now at her. "He doesn't need any other reason to be slow." I assume he was cursing too, but my sister doesn't curse, and when I was told what I missed, it was by my sister and the older woman. We were in our 20s. I assume the woman was mid-40s that was in front of that mean dude. Anyway, she stared daggers at him and bluntly told him, "How dare you talk to someone like that? No one deserves to be talked to like that. Also, I abhor that word you used, but the only one acting like that is you." The man said something about how my sister can't talk to him like that. He's a customer. To which my sister told him, "I don't work here." She said slowly and emphasized each word. "And I don't know him. What I do know is you have a poor attitude and you should think about how you talk to people, as you don't want to be that guy." She air quoted that for emphasis. I could hear the "I don't work here" as I came back and ended up running past everyone, seeing my sister still standing by the employee with her hand on his back. I ran past everyone and stood at the end of the conveyor belt. Mostly I wanted to be in between the man and my sister. Everyone started clapping by this point and we're all staring at him. Some guy that was behind us was cheering on my sister and calling out things like, "Dude, don't be a jerk, just shut up." No one moved or said anything else, so my sister continued. "Well, as I see it, you have 2 choices. You can leave and go somewhere else, or shut your mouth." At this point, a manager came up and stood next to me, looking around all the entire line at everyone, dead quiet, waiting to see what the man wanted to do. "Is everything okay here?" he asked slowly. My sister answered, "This man here was mistreating your employee." The manager looked upset, but the guy was already properly shamed for his attitude, looking down, not saying anything. My sister looked at the employee, asking him if he was okay or if he needed a break. The manager was a little slow, but backed up the break, even offered to take over his lane. The employee said he wanted one, but wanted to clear his lane first. My sister refused to leave his side. I refused to move. I wanted to stay between angry guy and my sister. The manager stood next to me and took over bagging, though he told the rest of the people in the line that the other register was now open. A few people went. The guy went through the line quickly, paid and left, and refused to look at anyone in the eyes. After he went through, my sister waved the guy that was behind us through so we would be last. After we finished paying, the employee came around and gave her the biggest hug and thanked her. He had tears in his eyes. He said that it happened often, and this was the first time anybody had ever stood up for him. He also explained this was why he rarely helps on register unless it's late at night. My sister told him to always remember, if people are mean, it wasn't his fault or his problem. It's their problem. After that, he left to go on break while the older woman stayed to talk to us and offered to buy our items. My sister refused the offer, but happily talked to her while they filled me in. The manager came out a few minutes later and gave us coupons and a gift card. She took the coupons, but asked if he would give the gift card to the employee. Honestly, I'm surprised Angry Man stayed and checked out. I hope he thinks about how he talks to people in the future. Older cousin demanded her inheritance after our grandmother passed. She screams like a banshee when I tell her no. For context, my maternal grandmother is the one who passed, and my sister and I always called her by the Portuguese word for grandmother, vô. My biological mother is Vo's second and youngest kid, with there being a 12-year gap between my aunt and my mother. As a result, my cousins from that aunt are way older than me, as in I spent a decent part of being a toddler as the flower girl at their weddings. The cousin in this story is my cousin H, who's 15 years older than me. Given the gap in age, my Vo was super involved with my sister and I, as well as her great-grandkids from the older cousins. I was very close to Vo and still say, even now, that she was my very first best friend in this world. As she aged, Vo's health got worse, and by the time I was in high school, she was on oxygen around the clock. When we were kids, she had paperwork drawn up like a will, healthcare proxies, and others, just in case something happened, but we couldn't sign as we were under 18 back then. With the exception of maybe 3 people, most of my mother's family are huge addicts who refuse to get help. Vo didn't trust anyone other than my sister, my cousin Steve, and me. As soon as we were old enough, Vo asked us to take her to have these documents updated. Vo named my sister and I in the updated documents, and I had a professor at school review the new documents with me as well, so I understood them thoroughly. Steve was newly married, expecting his first kid, and renovating his new home, so Vo didn't want to stress him out more. Whenever a decision needed to be made on Vo's behalf, my sister and I would include him, and as someone older than us, we looked up to him. His sister, H, was a full-fledged addict on top of being entitled and snobby. Her husband, now ex, owns his own masonry business, and they did well for themselves, but when I was in junior high, she somehow managed to steal $10K out of Vo's savings and open a credit card in Vo's name. I was upset. My Vo was devastated that H did this to her. Fast forward a bit, and during my early 20s, I get news that my Vo has a bad case of pneumonia and is hospitalized. During my school winter vacation, I spend every day with her, and the doc says to me that she'll be discharged the next day since she's better. I return to school at the end of break, and I get a call 2 days later from my sister. The long and short of it is that Vo took a bad turn after discharge, and it didn't look like she'll survive. I raced back home. What was a 2-hour drive took maybe 90 minutes. I make it in time to say goodbye. I came in and held her hand and gave her one last kiss on the cheek. She passed about 10 minutes later. As everyone was in the elevator leaving, H asked Steve, sister, and I why we were the only 3 people the care team would speak to privately. We shrug it off in no mood to fuss. Sister and I get to work arranging the details of the funeral/wake. Vo's church has a beautiful memorial for her, and after we get back to my sister's house, H starts her crap again. She had been snooping and learned that sister and I were named as the proxy in POA, with me as the primary. I confirmed this to H, and she also read something about the will and that I was the executor. She starts her entitled Karen act when I confirm the will is correct. H:
Why you of all people? You're just a kid.
Me: I'm 22, not 5. She picked me because she doesn't trust most of the family. H:
Whatever. Just give me what Vo left and I'll go. And I'll take whatever she left for my kids too.
H has 2 kids named Courtney and Cody. My sister, Courtney, and I were left a necklace and a ring each and a little money. Cody got roughly 9 to 10K as he didn't get much in the way of items passed down. Vo didn't think he would want women's jewelry. However, she also gave me her old engagement ring to hold until one of you kids gets engaged and wants it. J. What are you on about? H.
Give me my money and my kid's stuff.
J. I can't.
Why?
Well, if you'd read the whole will, you'd know that you didn't get anything.
Why?
Because Vo said you already got yours when you stole her identity and retirement savings.
Whatever. Give me the stuff for my kids then.
I can't. Vo had me promise not to give anything to anyone other than the people listed. I can't give you my sister's inheritance for you to give to her. It goes directly to her. Guys, H is near 40 and throws a tantrum in the driveway and calls the cops on me. Tried saying I stole everything and attacked her. It backfired on her. Cops ran all of our info and H had warrants in 3 states. I just can't. She also wanted me to pay her bail. I told her forget herself. Edit. This all took place a few years ago, and I ran into my old teacher who knew the situation as she was friends with Vo since they were young. I was reminded of the situation when Vo's friend and I had coffee together after running into each other. You want me to lie about my hours so I don't go into overtime? Okay. I work in theater, doing front of house / customer service work, so that means I typically do a lot of odd hours with evenings and weekends. At my former job, they only wanted to pay me hourly, despite asking for salary numerous times, and honestly, it would have benefited them more than me. On average, my weekdays would run from 2 to 10, as I had my managerial / admin work I had to do during the day, which I couldn't always do during shows and events. I tried to schedule things so I wouldn't go into overtime, but every once in a while, it happened. Shows run long, people like to stay and chat. Rental events don't know their timings well and really mess up the time. It happens, just part of the job. So it would be pretty common for me to finish with 8.5 or 9-hour days, and since I was paid hourly, that meant overtime. Eventually, my boss and the executive director talked to me about why I so often went into overtime, and why did I come in early when I knew I'd be staying late. I outlined that unless I couldn't, I would schedule my days to try and have some leeway to avoid daily overtime, but it wasn't always possible, and they should understand that, especially my boss, as she had my position at one point before I started. While they did acknowledge that point, they didn't want to constantly pay for a little bit of overtime. Their solution was for me to adjust the hours on my timesheet on a day I worked over 8 hours and just take what would have been overtime and put it on a different day. In other words, misuse labor laws, so they wouldn't have to pay me an extra $9 or so for the half hour of daily overtime. I was unimpressed, but I was already looking for a new job, so I decided to play ball, because I knew I could still make my point with some malicious compliance. Thankfully, that first week, there were events I knew would likely run long, and they didn't disappoint. I ended up having to spread 6.5 hours of work over 2 days, one of which I came in after 5, but I ended up putting on my schedule that I came in at 2. Still, the same hours worked, just spread out to avoid the daily overtime. Well, of course, when timesheets were checked over, this was noticed that there were 2 days I charged for being in the office when I wasn't by our accountant. When she asked what the situation was, I explained that I did what was requested. I took the daily overtime hours and moved them to days I wasn't going into overtime. Thankfully, the accountant and I were pretty close, so she just rolled her eyes at the stupidity of it all and went to talk to my boss and the ED about it. The cherry on top of it all? Because I still claimed the same amount of hours, I still went into weekly overtime, which ended up meaning I got more money because the weekly hours all came in one lump rather than being spread out over the daily hours. 4 hours at 1.5 hours and 2.5 at double hours rather than the 6.5 all at the time and a half. Oddly enough, for the last couple months I worked at that mess of a theater, they didn't really harp on me about daily overtime anymore. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that she is the mediocre one? My wife and I are both highly educated people. We both have doctorates and several master's degrees, as well as being successful in our professional lives. We also have a son, Caleb, who's 18, male. He's our pride and joy. Throughout Caleb's life, my wife and I have had some disagreements about parenting. I'm someone who values my son being a well-rounded person, which means I don't want Caleb just to have good grades, and I don't care if he doesn't get a perfect score. And my wife is someone who values grades and discipline. It has taken us a long time to find a balance between what me and my wife want. Caleb in his first semester of law school. One of the requirements to graduate is to certify that you know the English language. Since Caleb already has a certification, he decided to pick up German as a fourth language. I advised him to maybe wait till third semester to start learning German just to give himself time to get used to how university works, and also because he has a history of pressuring himself a lot when studying. Caleb was adamant on starting now, so I didn't push the issue forward. He just finished his second evaluation and he's not doing as well as he expected. He's doing, in my opinion, fine. 9 out of 10 in his first test and 8 out of 10 on his second test, but he is very upset with himself. I tried to console him and told him that if he wanted to, we could look for some private tutoring, and I also reassured him that for someone who has never spoken an ounce of German, he's doing amazing. My wife, on the other hand, is furious with him. She told him that his grades are unacceptable and to start putting in more effort on his education. Caleb got even more upset and started crying. She tried to ground him for 2 weeks with no outings, but I didn't let her do so. So now she's mad with me. She says that my weak parenting is allowing our son to be mediocre and that she didn't raise Caleb to be average. I got mad because our son is nor average nor mediocre. So I asked her how many languages does she speak. My wife answers 1. So I tell her that she really doesn't have a say on this particular issue, since out of the 3 of us, she is most likely the mediocre one in that department. She got even more furious, so now I'm sleeping on the couch until further notice. I think I really messed up here, but I got very mad with her for making our son cry, so I couldn't keep quiet.
Am I the jerk for refusing to give my parents my password now that I'm an adult? This happened a few months ago, and my dad is insistent that I'm the jerk here. My parents have always been kind of overprotective. Ever since I was old enough to make my first social media accounts, they insisted that they had to have the passwords to them. Being around 11 years old at the time, I agreed. I soon got upset though, since I started noticing messages being sent that weren't typed by me on my account. If my friends swore, my parents would send them a message acting as if they were me, being rude to them and telling them that I didn't want to be friends with them anymore. This caused a lot of fights between me and my friends. Meanwhile, my parents stated that it was for the best. As I got older, this behavior just got worse. Around high school, my dad installed security cameras in the house. He said it was for keeping us safe, but honestly, it feels like I'm in prison. The cameras are all in different angles to make sure there are no blind spots. They've placed them in the kitchen, the living room, and all of the hallways. None in the bedrooms or bathrooms though. He can check them on his phone, along with use them as an intercom system to get upset at me if I'm doing something he doesn't like. He made me install an app on my phone that logs where I go, for how long, and how I got there. It keeps this information for about a week and notifies him if I turn off my location sharing. He checks it often and then asks me about it almost daily. Example, I saw you went to X's house today. How was that? He also keeps a paper in the house with all my usernames and passwords for every social media account I have that they know about. They make me update it yearly and test it before letting me go to make sure that it all works. They say that it's for safety reasons, so that if I go missing or something, they can check who I was talking to. However, I'm 21 now. I live with them to save money since I'm still a full-time university student. Recently, my dad asked me to update the passwords and I told him no because I would like to have some privacy now. He got extremely upset and used his parental controls on the Wi-Fi to cut my devices from getting connected for a week. I wasn't able to do my homework properly and I couldn't call with friends or anything because I didn't have much data in my phone plan. I got upset with my dad and got into a pretty bad argument with him. He said that he was just protecting me and that as my father, it was his job to make sure that he always knew where I was and what I was doing. I tried talking to my mom about this, but she said I shouldn't keep seeing the both of them as the bad guys and that I would eventually understand. She cried during our conversation and kept telling me how much I hurt my dad by implying that I don't trust him. I've always been introverted and never go anywhere without telling them. I don't think I need to be surveilled this heavy, but I do feel bad for upsetting my mom so much. Am I the jerk? Edit. Whoa, this blew up overnight. Thank you to everyone who messaged me and gave me advice in here. To be honest, I was a little nervous posting on here because, I don't know, maybe I thought people would think I was completely in the wrong. I know it's the point here to find out, but anyways, some things to clear up. I'm 21, female. I forgot to mention that. I don't really mind people using he/him for me in here since they didn't know,
but I just thought I'd say. I work part-time and I don't pay for rent, utilities, or Wi-Fi. My parents do ask me for large sums of money every once in a while to pay for stuff around the house, fixing the broken fridge, getting the heater replaced when it died, etc. I live in Canada, so the stuff in Australia and USA doesn't help me, but I appreciate it anyway. I'll try to update you guys in the future. Thank you to everyone for your advice and for wishing me good luck.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.